I am a wealthy master in India. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 76. He's not honest. Oh, I think I understand. Ron suddenly remembered the inside information Kavya had provided before. This was the first time he had heard of this name. Perhaps, as the gossip had guessed, this Elizabeth was an outsider. You are not a gangster, nor a banker. At this time, Sharma also reacted. Do I look so much like a jerk? Ron smiled and walked to the sofa and sat down. I am a businessman. I heard that you are planning to sell that piece of land in the newspaper. Oh, that's right. Sharma suddenly became excited. You have a good eye. That piece of land is unique in Mumbai. It is more than 100,000 square meters. More than 100,000 square meters of wasteland. There are not even slums nearby, but you can't find a larger and continuous private land than this. Mr. Sharma, have you heard of the word lot? There are large tracts of unowned desert in Rajasthan, but no one wants it. My land is not a desert. It is the most valuable asset of the textile factory. Ron waved his hand to interrupt his boasting. Make an offer, 100 million rupees, Sharma shouted. Fuck, this bastard is a lunatic. Vinod rolled up his sleeves and prepared to beat him up. Stop, Sharma shouted. He looked at Ron in confusion. Why don't you bargain? Wait until he beats you up sober, then it's not too late to bargain. Ron crossed his legs and watched the show leisurely. Vinod grabbed his collar and swung his hand. Stop. 50 million, Sharma shouted. Vinod turned his head. Ron didn't say anything. Snap. The fat on Sharma's face trembled. 30 million, it can't be any lower. Snap. This time Vinod didn't even need to ask Ron for instructions. 20 million, it can't be any lower. Sharma covered his face and wailed. Vinod continued to swing his arms. Stop. Stop, Sharma screamed, looking at Ron with a face full of resentment. You don't even want to bargain. This is not Indian at all. You are too greedy. Do I look like a sucker? You can bargain, Sharma said aggrievedly. Indians do business, bargaining at the last moment before the deal is made. Well, 5 million rupees, absolutely impossible. Pa. Vinod's slap fell. Ron was stunned, and so was Sharma. He is not honest, Vinod explained weakly. Damn it, I'm going to fight you. Sharma twisted his round body with all his strength. Over there, Vinod held him down with one hand, motionless. In less than 2 minutes, Sharma was like a slug that had lost its soul, limp and motionless. Okay, let him go. Ron tilted his head. Vinod took 2 steps back and looked at Sharma warily, but the latter could only breathe heavily. Ron looked at him, and he also looked at Ron. Why don't you bargain? Ron asked curiously. Sharma looked at him, then at Vinod, wanting to cry but unable to. I think the price of 5 million rupees can be discussed. Ron spoke first. 15 million, Sharma tried to bargain. 8 million, 12 million, 8.5 million, 12 million. Vinod wanted to hide him again, but Sharma refused to give in this time. Mr. Sharma, I am sincere in doing this business. But your offer is unreasonable. According to the market price, the land is not worth that much. The textile factory not only has land, but also factory buildings and some equipment, which are all assets. I have learned that you have sold all the valuable equipment there, and now what is left is just an empty shell. No, you can't hit me. Sharma shook his head stubbornly. This was his last stubbornness as a businessman. I need to go to the textile factory for on-site evaluation, as well as various procedures and documents, and then we can have the final negotiation. Ron gave in. I'll think about it. Sharma hesitated. Mr. Sharma, please remember that we are more sincere than banks and more reasonable than gangsters. Ron handed him a business card and left quietly with Vinod. The room returned to silence again, as if nothing had happened. Sharma looked at the business card in his hand, his brows relaxed and wrinkled, hesitant. As long as the real owner is found, the purchase of the land will be settled. The rest of the process cannot be rushed, and various procedures and terms need to be confirmed slowly, otherwise it is easy to step into a trap. The first thing Ron did after leaving the hotel was to call Kavya and ask her to remove Sharma's advertisement. He would make up for the loss of money for the newspaper. It's just an advertisement, at most a few thousand rupees. But Kavya said that it was not necessary to be so troublesome. She just needed to find an excuse to reject Sharma's application. The newspaper receives so many advertising invitations every day, and no one cares about this matter. Okay, Indian characteristics. The whole country is a huge makeshift team. After finishing this matter, Ron began to calculate his own small treasury. According to his estimation, the offer just now was probably Sharma's bottom line 12 million rupees. This is not a small number. All his previous savings were about 6 million, and after completing Luca's business, he probably made another million. The past October was a harvest month, and the turnover of the Mumbai travel company hit a new high. He hasn't seen the specific accounts yet, but Harris roughly calculated that the profit in October was at least 1 million rupees. Adding it up, he can use nearly 9 million rupees in cash, and there is still a shortfall of 3 million. It's not even halfway through November yet, and it's too late to count on it now. There won't be any news from Luca for a while, so he can basically give up considering it. Among his group of friends, he's the richest, so this is also impossible. If it really doesn't work, he can only go to the bank. The reason why Ron finally considered the bank was because he had heard about how outrageous the banks in India were. The police were corrupt, the officials were corrupt, so were the banks corrupt? This question, the children in the slums knew the answer. Ron was not anxious about Sharma, he knew that the other party would come to him. There were no surprises, and there was no choice. The pressure of debt collection from banks and workers alone was enough to discourage the interest of most people outside. As for the gangs, as long as Sharma was not stupid, he would know what to choose. Ron was already preparing the funds and the procedures required to go to the bank for a loan. But before he finished, Anand came to the door. "Ron, are you free tomorrow?" "What, going to the slums?" He shook his neck happily. "The Sky Village is having a banquet again. Come, just come, dude. I'm so busy now that I don't have time to go to the banquet." "It's Alibaba who invited you." "Who?" Ron was stunned. "Taj Ali. He invited you last time, to the fishing village by the sea." "Oh," Ron remembered. He was busy with Sharma's affairs recently, and he almost forgot about it. Chapter 77 Self-Redemption in the Slums. The slums were still the same, with low and fragile huts made of reed mats. They were built without any rules, crookedly, and trying their best to occupy every available corner. There was no planning here, and no alley was straight. If a stranger came here without a guide, he would probably get lost after turning 2 corners. Anand took Ron through the maze-like alleys, and the residents around them smiled and greeted them warmly when they saw them. A group of young men were working in teams to clear the dirt in the gutter that blocked the flow of water, and some were helping widows, orphans, and those who had lost their ability to work to repair their huts. They helped each other and had a clear division of labor. Ron guessed that someone was planning and deciding all this behind the scenes, and that person was most likely the target of their trip. Taj Ali's hut was not much bigger than others, with the same bamboo poles, plastic sheets, and reed mats, but the difference was that there was a small area next to his hut. At this moment, the place was crowded with people, Anand told Ron. Taj Ali's eldest son Farooq had just returned from working in Kuwait, where he had been for 6 months. The young men in the slums liked to listen to his stories about his adventures outside. Farooq is tall and strong, with straightforward eyes and a shy smile. Many young men are asking him for advice on working abroad, what are the best jobs, who are the best employers, who has the worst reputation, and how to make extra money between the busy black markets in the Persian Gulf countries and the black markets in Mumbai. Following the requirements of his father Ali, Farooq teaches here every afternoon, imparting his experience to everyone who comes here for a week. There are so many people who come to listen to his valuable knowledge that the room can't fit in, and then squeeze into the small venue outside. Anand pushed through the crowd and squeezed into the room with Ron. When Taj Ali saw them, he waved the copper-covered wooden stick in his hand, and Farooq tacitly led the crowd to the outside of the hut. "Mr. Sir, please sit down, just call me Ron." The two sides are already familiar with each other, and Ron doesn't pay attention to those red tape. Seeing him sitting casually on a wooden block, the smile in Taj Ali's eyes became more gentle. The guys outside now want to work in 2 places the most. One is Kuwait, and the other is your travel company. Half a year ago, their choice was only the first one. They're all good guys. Ron glanced outside. They can endure hardships and never complain. To be honest, Ron likes to hire people from this slum. I don't know if it's because of Taj Ali's restraint, or Anand's teachings, but no one who went out from here to work in his company has ever caused trouble. They have never embezzled money privately, nor have they asked tourists for tips. On the contrary, they will find ways to save money for Ron. For example, they will carefully pick up the brochures thrown away by tourists, clean them up, and then use them again. Although this is not much money, which employer doesn't like such employees, and Ron is no exception. You gave them jobs and paid them generously, so that dozens of families in the slums can live in peace. That's hundreds of people. They should thank you instead of complaining. They did it, and I am very grateful to them. Ron just followed common sense and gave them the rewards they deserved. However, what he considered common sense was already a great thing for Tejali and Anand. There was the consistent discrimination of caste, the nature of capital, and the strong secular barriers built by it. In short, Ron's common sense approach seemed rare and precious. In fact, he really didn't give preferential treatment to anyone, but India was too magical. Ron, Anand said, you are a very good doctor. Well, I'm not a real doctor, I just know a little bit. Ron turned his head and looked at Anand next to him, who happily shook his neck. In the past, if the group of people under his company had bumps and scratches, Ron basically treated them personally. From ordinary external injuries to common diarrhea and colds, he could treat them. There was no shortage of medicines, and all kinds of medical tools were complete, so there was nothing that could not be solved. The reason why Ron dared to treat others boldly was because he knew that if he didn't care, Anand and the others would never go to the hospital. What hospital would people in the slums go to? Do you really think that India can achieve free medical care for all? It's a fantasy. You are a good doctor. Tejali ignored Ron's modesty. There are more than 20,000 residents in the slums here, and dozens or hundreds of people will encounter various diseases every day. Why don't you go to the hospital? St. George's Hospital is not far from here, Ron asked. St. George's Hospital is a charitable medical institution funded by a charitable trust fund. There are not only luxurious wards serving the rich, but also free medical centers for the poor. There are always too many people there. I've asked. They have to see more than 600 patients every day, sometimes more than 1,000. They try their best. Even for emergencies, they suggest that I get a referral from a licensed medical practitioner first. To put it bluntly, with a referral, you can jump the queue. The problem is that people here look down on licensed doctors, and there is no way to get a referral to jump the queue to a big hospital. They are so poor that they can't even guarantee tomorrow's meal. I'm not blaming those hospitals. I know they have their own problems, insufficient staff and too many patients. People from several nearby slums go there, and they do their best. But some emergencies, like diarrhea, may be solved by a few pills. You don't have to spend a huge amount of money to get a referral from a licensed doctor. Tejali described the medical situation in the slums in a calm tone, with no complaints in his eyes. Everything should be like this, the situation in the slums should be like this, and no one is surprised by it. So what do you want me to do for you? I reiterate that I am not a professional doctor and I am not a real doctor, Ron sighed. This is a dead end. Poor people need to queue up to see a doctor, but they often cannot wait. Children with diarrhea will die if they are not treated in time. There are as many as 2 to 3 million children who die of diarrhea in India every year, and these are all children of the poor. They cannot jump the queue and cannot afford to get a certificate. The so-called free medical care is out of reach. Ron also knew that it was time to repay the favor. The last time Luca transported the goods, without Tejali's intervention, they would not have been able to thrive at the dock. I hope you can come to the slums to teach like Farouk. Teach, once a week for 2 months, come here to treat patients. I will select a few young people to learn from you. They don't have to be very proficient. You just need to tell them the general effect and usage of the medicine. All the medicines are provided by us. We will take care of everything, and no one will come to trouble you. Ron looked at the slum leader in surprise. He was shocked by the rules here again. Chapter 78. Lucky enough. Tejali's dark brown skin wrapped around his slender and strong body, smooth and tight like a boxer. In the dim hut, his thick short silver-gray hair attracted attention, which was lighter than his goatee. He usually wore a cotton khaki shirt and plain white western trousers. Although his clothes were simple and cheap, they were always washed and ironed. After putting forward his request, he did not rush Ron to express his opinion. His skinny palms occasionally pinched a few dates from the plate beside him, which were snacks that most Indians liked. Ron was very surprised by Tejali's request. He originally thought that the other party would propose conditions such as a commission on the transaction. In the process of dealing with those customs and police, they negotiated in this way. But today was an accident. The unspoken rules of passing through Mumbai seem to be invalid in the slums. I can come once a week and tell them everything I know. But as I said just now, I'm not a professional doctor and I can't guarantee that I can cure all diseases. That's enough, Tejali smiled. Anand and the others have been with you for more than half a year, but haven't been to the hospital once. This is enough for the slums. Okay, I'll come every Thursday. If there are patients here, let them prepare in advance. The people at the dock are easy to deal with. Rahul likes you, I can see. Rahul is the leader of the fishermen in the dock area. Ron's goods are shipped out of there with his approval. Every slum or place where poor people live in Mumbai has such a leader. They are not the bosses in the sense of gangs. Their power comes from the people who love them. They are also the only managers in the slums. They resolve disputes that have escalated into conflicts and immediate disputes over assets, use rights, and ownership. Many people even seek their opinions on everything from employment to marriage. In a sense, roles like Tejali completely replace the government. They manage more and wider areas than the government. Of course, not everyone can be the head of a slum. He must love the residents here like a saint. He must also be fair and selfless, just like today. Tejali told Ron that as long as he did not damage the interests of the fishing village, Rahul would welcome him very much. This was an exciting signal, which meant that if he needed it in the future, he could mobilize the resources here at any time. Don't look down on poorer places like slums. Many profitable transactions in Mumbai are concluded in these areas. With their recognition, Ron finally had his own sphere of influence in Mumbai. Although it was not very stable, it was a good sign. After bidding farewell to Tejali, Ron went back to continue his loan affairs. The time to use the money was not long, and he needed to prepare in advance. However, to Ron's surprise, when he and the accountant Harris explained their expectations to the Bank of India, their loan application was rejected. The bank's reply was very simple. Ron had nothing to mortgage. His house was rented, the company office was rented, and the storefronts at the railway station and the airport were also rented. He did not have even a little fixed asset, even if he showed the company's cash flow certificate. It was totally unworkable. The weird loan policy of Indian banks caught Ron off guard. Now there were two options before him. Either he spent money to buy a house or a piece of land, and then mortgage it to the bank for a loan. Or he went to other banks to try. Maybe they would have different policies. The first option was out of the question. He was short of money. How could he get extra money to buy fixed assets? So Ron took Harris to the United Bank, the Industrial Credit Bank, and a private bank. As expected, all state-owned banks rejected his loan application. At this point, Ron realized that this was a national policy. In 1992, India's economy was still very difficult. Last year, it was considered a shame for many elites to ship gold to Europe to exchange for foreign exchange reserves. The country's economy was endangered, and the conditions for banks to lend money were much stricter. In short, they would never lend money without corresponding collateral. Another private bank was willing to give money, but their conditions were even more extreme. If there was no collateral, they would exchange it with company shares. It was not just a few percentage points, but more than 60% of the shares. Ron was even amused by it. It was ridiculous. There was no other way. He could only use his connections to find Harry and Singh to help build bridges on the front line. They helped Ron find a senior bank official, but the feedback was not optimistic. They want 30% of the loan amount in return. You know, Ron, this is the rule. Harry shook his neck. But I heard that it usually only takes 10% to 20%. Why do I want 30% this time? Because you have nothing to pledge. Helping you get a loan is equivalent to bypassing the policy, and the price you pay is naturally higher. In other words, if I want a loan of 3 million rupees, the actual application amount is at least 4.3 million rupees. That's about it. Ron was once again amused by this ridiculous rule. This is why he was unwilling to borrow from the bank. He had heard that the money borrowers received was different from the money in the loan contract, because part of it would be given to senior bank officials as a bribe. This was not directed at him. Everyone was like this, and the whole country of India was the same. But this time it was not possible. He was unwilling to spend this 1.3 million rupees in vain. At the same time, he would have to pay the interest on the 4.3 million rupees loan in the next few years. The cost was too high. With the 1.3 million plus the interest, the money he lost was far more than the 3 million he received. Ron, Those who are qualified for loans through bank review in India are already lucky enough. Countless people are stopped outside banks every day and have nowhere to turn to, Harry reminded him. I know, I will think about it carefully, Ron smiled at him. He knew Harry meant well and was telling the truth. It was just that this kind of luck was a bit too ridiculous. In this way, he might as well go to a private lender, such as Cad Khan. But this was also a path he didn't want to take. He didn't want to owe favors to gangsters unless it was absolutely necessary. It was the hardest to repay favors from officials and gangsters, and he had been trying his best to avoid this situation. It seemed that he had to think of other ways. Fortunately, there was no news from Rashid for the time being. Bored Ron had nothing to do, so he simply prepared to go to Leopold's bar for a drink. His genius friends might have some feasible wild ways. But before he could leave, Mary called him. Ron, are you free to come to the studio? What's the matter? Nothing important, just coming to chat? Also, Lena misses you very much, and there is a producer who also wants your help. Okay, I'll be there right away. He hadn't interacted with Mary and the others for more than a week, so it would be nice to go and discuss some big business. Chapter 79 It's All Your Fault. November was a crisp autumn day in Mumbai. Ron was sitting in a taxi, rushing along the seaside avenue all the way to the Juhu district. Looking at the street scenes passing by outside the car window, he couldn't help wondering if he should buy a car. It would be better to find a full-time driver, so that it would be more convenient to run around. Of course, this matter would have to wait a little bit, as he was short of money now. Moreover, Ron looked down on the Indian-made Tata cars and ambassador cars. India was famous for its shoddy products, and tools such as cars that involved safety had to be imported. In the distance, the Bollywood RK Studios was already in sight. There was a noticeable increase in the flow of people and cars here. As soon as he got out of the taxi, a figure jumped up from behind him and covered his eyes. Bad guy, guess who I am? Well, Ron sniffed his nose. Of course it's her lovely and beautiful Lena. Bingo. Correct answer. Lena stuck her head out from behind his neck and offered her hot lips. It was not until the two of them felt dizzy from lack of oxygen that they reluctantly separated from each other. Ron held her soft thighs and weighed them. Little Lena seemed to have gained some weight recently. You've become more plump, Lena. Don't call me fat. She hugged Ron's neck and yelled, I even went to learn yoga, but Indian food has too much sugar. Yoga? That's good. What bad idea are you planning? Let's discuss it tonight. Where's Mary? She just called me. She's in there. Those foreigners are very wary of local Indians and are afraid of being cheated. So we have to have someone watching them. They didn't cause you any trouble? Ron asked. No, they are very nice and are also curious about Bollywood. But how did you do it? Other Indian casting agents have tried, and the reactions of those foreigners are probably suspicious and hostile. In fact, it's not difficult for me to convince them to play silent roles in Bollywood movies. They are very enthusiastic about me because I take them to cheap and clean hotels, delicious restaurants, and fun places. That's all. Lena hung on his neck and refused to get down. To put it bluntly, you have to gain their trust first. Of course, there are more to it than that. I have also found the trick. I have met all kinds of foreign tourists, and the way to quickly win their trust is very complicated. It is probably 2 parts of humor, 2 parts of flattery, 1 part of flirting, plus a little bit of mischief, a little bit of arrogance, and a little bit of contempt. Lena stared with big eyes and was stunned. Is it so complicated? Wait, did you use this trick on me and Mary? That's different. I didn't have the opportunity to use this skill at all. I was the passive one. Hey, Mary, Ron patted Lena's hips. The latter looked at Mary triumphantly, and then jumped off his back. Lena, you should lose weight. Look, some people are so tired that their waists can't even straighten up, and they have to try hard to pretend that they don't care. It's really pitiful. Okay, let's talk about business. Ron separated them unnoticeably. At this time, just pretend to be stupid. Let's talk inside first. Mary let them go, and when she turned around, she glanced at Ron. There was a little mischief, a little arrogance, and a little contempt in her eyes. Ron touched his nose. Fortunately, this embarrassment was only for one person. The simple-minded Lena didn't understand this at all. On the way to the studio, passers-by often came to greet Mary and the others, but Ron was relatively less. They have been working together for a while, and just yesterday Ron sent 8 foreigners over. As long as Mary and the others need something, he will try his best to meet it. Those foreigners who meet the requirements, Ron has selected them from the beginning. He took them to the Piccadilly restaurant, the Deep Tea Juice Bar, and the Strand Coffee House, and then encouraged them to spend money. When Mary needed someone to play a supporting role, Ron would persuade them on the spot. At this time, the store owner, manager, and clerk would vouch for him one by one, and the matter would be settled in just a few minutes. Not only foreigners are enthusiastic about him, but people in local stores are also enthusiastic about him. This is a skill, and it is very useful. After more than 2 months of cooperation, Mary and Lena have almost contracted the work of selecting actors from major studios and producers. Now they are trying to get into the famous RK Studios, the most famous studio in Bollywood. Passing through the gate, a tall iron gable roof like a gray sailboat is squatting on a field. All kinds of messy equipment, cables, and people are crowded at the door. Someone is holding a list and shouting something. After Mary went up to say hello, the guard took them to the soundproof studio. There was a group of Germans waiting there. They were the extras that Ron sent over yesterday. It was a break in the shooting, and Lena had prepared some coffee and tea for the young people. There were several tables in the studio surrounding the stage, arranged like a modern nightclub, and they gathered around 2 of the tables. Ron walked over to greet them, exchanged some jokes, and then pushed Mary aside. "How are they doing?" "Very good," she said happily. "I think they are patient, not nervous, and enjoy it. The things they shoot will be great. Ron, the people sent here recently are very good, and the producer is very happy. Maybe we can really make achievements in this field. You, me, and Lena, you like this line of work, don't you?" "Indeed," she gave a smile that Ron could feel on the back of his head. "I like this job." Her expression became serious and firm. That is the firmness seen on the face of someone who has no hope but still strives hard. Her skin is flawless, her rose-colored eyes are full of determination, and her long and curly red hair is combed back from her face and tied into a beautiful hairstyle, which complements her dignified and steady ivory trousers. "Ron, I like the people here and the life here, and I think you will like it too." "Of course, I like you too," Ron smiled. He didn't know what Mary had experienced that made her so determined. But Ron knew that she must need the feeling of being cared for at this moment. That kind of love includes friendship, appreciation, respect, and simple love, and he did not hesitate to express his feelings. Mary looked him in the eyes and then laughed. She took his arm and led him around the studio. "This movie is a comedy," she said. "No surprise, a romantic comedy. The heroine is Ginny. I think she is very sexy and charming. She is not a good dancer, but she is very beautiful. The hero is Chanky Pandey. He is also very good in his performance, if he doesn't make mistakes all the time. Speaking of this, where are the producers?" "Oh, damn, I almost forgot." Mary covered her forehead. "It's all your fault, Ron." "What? You just interrupted." Ron blinked innocently. What did he say to make her forget the serious matter? "Come on, I'll introduce you to business." Mary took his arm and walked towards the stage. Chapter 80, Don't You Guys Change Your Words? Mary was going to introduce him to a producer, whom Ron actually knew. Chandra Mehta. They had met several times on the set. "Hey, Ron, glad you're here. I'll come more often in the future. Mary likes this job." "Oh, that's great." Mary did a great job. He looked at them thoughtfully. "Can I take a minute of your time, Ron?" "Of course. You guys chat. I'll go check out the set." Mary left tactfully. Ron and Chandra left the stage and walked under a metal gantry that supported a large number of bright lights. Chandra pushed his baseball cap back on his head, the elastic band holding his curly hair, which made his fat face look even rounder. Under his big belly, he wore faded Levi's jeans, and the tuck shirt almost completely covered his big belly from top to bottom. The enclosed studio was a little humid, and his clothes were completely soaked, and he was sweating profusely. "Brother, how is it here? Actually, I've always wanted to see you." "Yar." His voice made people feel that he had ulterior motives. "Let's go outside to get some fresh air. I'm so hot that my little brother is about to burn." It was obvious that he was thinking about how to start the conversation, and Ron had no intention of interrupting. There was no need to be so proactive at this time. This is also one of the tricks to communicate with people. They walked between the metal dome buildings, and actors in costumes and script supervisors holding props and equipment passed by them. On the way, 9 beautiful dancing girls wearing strange feather costumes passed by them and were going to a studio. Ron was unconsciously attracted by their gaze, his head turned, and his body lagged behind a few steps. "Well, Ron, what I want to talk to you about is," he turned his head. "Oh. Brother, are you interested in them?" Suddenly, Chandra seemed to have found a secret, and he was no longer as embarrassed as before. There was a gleam in his eyes. "No, I'm just curious." Ron shook his head quickly. "It's okay, brother. You can pick whatever you want, or take them all. I promise not to let Mary know." "Don't do that." Ron waved his hands quickly. "Let's talk about what happened just now. Yar, if you change your mind, I mean if you want to see them dance, just come find me." Chandra paused, then touched his arm lightly. "It's like this. I have a friend who is a businessman, doing business in the United States." "Wait." Ron stopped with a strange look. "I forgot the first part, and I forgot the second part. Anyway, is your friend having problems with a US dollar cash flow?" "God, how do you know what I want to say? Don't you guys change the word." "What?" Chandra wiped the sweat from his forehead guiltily. "How many US dollars does your friend need to solve the cash flow problem?" Ron simply went through the process. "Oh. I think about $50,000 will be enough." He looked at Ron cautiously, and then suddenly changed his mind. "If it's too much, $10,000 will be fine." "No. Just $50,000. But the exchange rate must be 30% lower than the official one." "Is that acceptable?" "Okay, as long as it's in US dollars," Chandra agreed without hesitation. In fact, this price is slightly high, but Chandra has too much black money under his bed, so he must launder it. Ron was also very satisfied with the deal. He lowered the price by 30% here, and the profit would be 500,000 rupees. If you add the money he made from the Bollywood extras during this period, he will almost have 1 million rupees, which is one step closer to his goal. They agreed to meet on the set tomorrow, and Ron would stuff the US dollars into a soft backpack and hand it to him. During the peak tourist season, Ron handled more than 100,000 US dollars every month. Some of them were exchanged for officials, some were taken away by Cad Khan, and the rest were kept for emergency. Now is the right time. These producers are really rich, and he has to grasp this line. When shaking hands with Chandra, Ron deliberately applied a little force that made the other party uncomfortable. Ron just wanted to make him feel a little pain, a little bit of pain, which would make him focus more on the kind smile on Ron's face and the cold eyes above. "Chandra, if you are not sure whether you will mess up, then don't even try," Ron warned, and the feeling of being pinched was transmitted from Chandra's hand to his eyes. "No one likes to be fooled, especially my friends." "Oh, of course not, Baba," he said in a joking tone, but he could not hide the horror in his eyes. "No problem. Don't worry. I am very grateful that you can help me, not my friends." "Very good. This is our first cooperation, and I will help more of your friends in the future." Neither of them mentioned the name of Hard Khan, but they understood each other tacitly. Chandra thought that these US dollars came from Hard Khan, and everyone knew the other party's terrible reputation. Ron used this to control him. Those officials and gangsters could not use this method, but ordinary elites with money and status were most susceptible to this. They needed help from him, but they didn't dare to face Kadhan directly, so he became the best person to ask for help from a safe distance. The two slowly walked back to the studio, where Mary and Lena were with other producers. "Hey, how's the negotiation going?" Joseph greeted Ron, but his eyes were on Chandra. "It's going well." The two smiled at the same time. "I knew it was great," Joseph laughed. Obviously, he had a share of the $50,000 just now. The shooting resumed. Chandra and Joseph were engaged in intense work, and Ron stood next to Mary with nothing to do. "What did you say this movie is about?" "It takes place in a nightclub." A movie version of a nightclub. The hero steals a piece of jewelry from a wealthy politician and hides here. He sees the girl, Jimmy, performing in a big musical, and he becomes obsessed with her. When the police show up, he hides the jewelry in her wig. The next plot is about how he tries to get close to her and get the jewelry back. I guess you think that's a bit stupid." "No, it's not. It's interesting," Ron laughed. "You must be thinking that if it happened in the real world, the man would beat her up, get the jewelry back, or even shoot her." "I know what you're laughing at, asshole." "Which gun?" Ron asked with a smile. "You said you didn't have it." Mary couldn't help but pat him on the back. "What are you talking about?" The clever and eccentric Lena came over. "He wants to shoot you with a gun," Mary said unhappily. Now, Lena was a little embarrassed. "There are too many people here. I know an unused studio. Let's talk about this topic when we get back. Ron covered her mouth. Why did this silly girl say anything? Lena giggled non-stop, with a smile of success in her eyes. By the way, I heard that you have been getting closer to Kavia recently. Mary changed the subject and asked casually. Hiss, the air was a little cold, and Ron shivered uncontrollably. Chapter 81. That girl is nice. I asked her to help me get some information, about that piece of land. Are you really going to buy that piece of land? Yes, I want to try other businesses. Ron nodded. Don't you like your current job? You do a good job, and we work well together. I thought you would fall in love with your current life. Mary stared into his eyes. No, I like my current job and my current life very much. There is no contradiction. I just want to do more, Ron explained. Well, men are always like this, wanting more. Mary didn't seem surprised. Perhaps, you can understand it as career ambition. Hearing Ron's words, she smiled. How much is left? What? To buy the piece of land? It will cost a lot of money. Not much. I will take care of it. Ron shrugged easily. If necessary. I mean, if you are willing, Lena and I can put together a little. Don't do it. Ron shook his head quickly. Money is not a problem. You and Lena should do this business well. Now is the critical period for your expansion. Ron's self-esteem was not at work, and he was unwilling to spend a girl's money. But he knew that as foreigners, it was very difficult for Mary and Lena to make some money in Mumbai. At the same time, he had a vague intuition in his heart that they didn't have any good memories in the past. The current life is precious, and he doesn't want to break their beauty. You are too gentlemanly sometimes. Mary looked at him picky, and there was a strong fascination in that pickiness. What can I say? I am not a genuine Indian man, maybe, but fortunately it is so. She suddenly laughed. In the few months in India, she had seen too many strange Indian men. She couldn't imagine what it would be like if Ron was one of them. By the way, that Kavya. If you like her, go after her. What? Ron turned his head in disbelief. Don't look at me like that. Lena and I never mind these, including your future marriage. Mary's expression was flat and unchanging, and she didn't fluctuate at all. Just like a pool of water, there is no wind or rain, and no clear sky. Wait, why is this happening? I mean, if I like other girls, you won't feel sad or jealous or something. Why should I feel sad? You have your life, and we have ours. It's different, Ron. We're different. She looked at the stage in the distance. You never told me about the past. Ron frowned. I should be busy, and those young people need someone to watch over them. Mary avoided the topic lightly, and she turned and walked towards the stage. Do you like Kavya? I don't know when Lena came over again. That girl is good. What's wrong with you? Ron suddenly felt like laughing and crying. Her baby face was very beautiful, and when she spoke, both her tone and her eyes were very innocent. I don't think she's as good as me. Lena licked her slightly thick and sexy lips. I mean the art of speaking, Hey, don't you think it's weird to talk about this topic? Ron was a little confused. You don't have to be shy. Next time I meet Kavya, I will teach her how to talk. I'm really good at it, and I promise you'll be thrilled. What's wrong with you two? Or am I too conservative as an Indian? Nothing. She giggled and ran towards Mary with her hands behind her back. The two of them were almost inseparable, like a pair of conjoined twins. Ron was very confused today. For the first time, he felt that Mary and Lena were very mysterious. He had no idea where they came from or why they came to India. While he was thinking, Joseph in the distance suddenly waved and called him. Ron, come here. What's the matter? We still need a man, Yar. A white man, sitting between those two cute girls. What does it have to do with me? Ron suddenly moved his neck flexibly. Come on, man. Look at your skin color, your hair color. If you change your hairstyle a little, you'll be a real white Westerner, more real than Amitabh Bachchan. No, I can't act. The camera makes me uncomfortable. Come on. He grabbed Ron's hand. No lines, just like them. The two German girls stood up and reached out to pull Ron to the position between them. Come on, please, one of the girls said in German. Didn't you just tell us how easy it was yesterday? They were attractive. Ron chose them because these young people were all healthy and attractive men and women. Their smiles were provoking him to join. Okay, just this one shot. I have something else to do and I have to leave soon. Joseph and the stagehand stepped back and the actors took their positions. The star Changji stood in the front, and the makeup assistant was holding a mirror to make the final adjustments to his hairstyle. "You missed the best part," said a German girl nearby. "It took this guy a long time to learn how to do this dance. He failed many times, and every time he failed, the assistant with the mirror would pop out. Then we watched the guy comb his hair again. If we filmed all the failed scenes and the short guy combing his hair with a mirror, I tell you, that alone could make a hit comedy." This experience was novel, and foreign tourists would not find it boring even if they wasted a day in Bollywood. That's why they were willing to perform for free, and now Ron was also drafted. Mary and Lena were standing on the sidelines, folding their arms and laughing. The photographer stared at the camera and froze. The director stood next to him and gave the final instructions to the lighting team. With a gesture from the assistant director, the whole audience was silent. "Music," the director ordered. "Start shooting." Several stadium-sized speakers played music, making a loud bang on the set. This was the loudest Indian movie music Ron had ever heard, and it made people's hearts pound. The actors and actresses, including all the dancers, walked onto the stage with exaggerated movements. The two leading actors walked briskly from one side of the stage to the other, dancing and lip-syncing to the music. The dazzling dance was followed by 2 fleeting scenes. Ron only appeared in 2 scenes. However, Jimmy's seductive dance steps in front of him made him feel itchy. In the evening, as soon as the filming was over, he couldn't wait to return to their apartment with Mary and Lena. Although they were of high caste, they couldn't always eat vegetarian food. It was time to eat meat. Poor little Nia, she was alone in an empty room again. Someone was rushing around and getting along with everyone in the crowd. The next morning, when he yawned and returned to the company, Harris told him that someone called Leon Miller. "Hey, this name is a bit familiar." After thinking about it, Ron remembered that they seemed to have met at the Montega Cafe. Maybe he encountered some problems, or maybe he wanted to hire Ron, a guide who knew German. Anyway, no matter what, Ron was ready to meet him. The guy didn't look like an ordinary tourist, which was an intuition he had developed since he started working in this business. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 82. Which foreigner has not been cheated? Ron and Leon met at the Montega Cafe again, a place they were both familiar with. When Ron stepped into the cafe, Leon was still sitting by the window, but his expression was far less relaxed than last time. "Looks like you've had a rough few days." Ron sat opposite him. "You should be thankful that I'm still sitting here safe and sound." Leon's eyes were complicated. "What happened?" "I was robbed by the Indian police." "It sounds ridiculous, but I was indeed robbed of everything by a country's law enforcement agency." Leon still felt unbelievable. He bet that if he told this to others, his friends in his hometown in Europe would think he was joking, a very clumsy and ridiculous joke. "Ron, do you believe that this kind of thing happened in Mumbai, the largest city in India?" "To be honest, I'm not that surprised." "Tell me what happened." Ron called the waiter to order 2 cups of coffee, and he noticed that there was nothing in front of Leon. "Thank God, I should have had a cup of coffee earlier." He held the cup with a pious expression. "Dude, you don't have any money for the order, do you?" "What else?" "Have you ever seen a foreigner sitting in a coffee shop for more than half an hour without any reaction?" "I smell the beginning of a sad story." Ron shrugged. "Things happen so fast that you can't react." Leon took a sip of coffee, and his expression gradually relaxed. "Just 2 days ago, after we met for the first time, I returned to the private hotel where I stayed for a few days. The owner handed me a cigarette and said it was a very famous cigarette in India. You know, we have been together for a few days, and I trust him, so I took the cigarette. Then at that moment, 2 fully armed Indian police rushed out from the corner. They told me in broken English that I was suspected of violating the anti-snake law here. Then it became obvious that they took away all my things. Wallet, cash, camera, watch, and several leather-covered notebooks. This sounds like a trap, Ron commented. 100%, Leon cursed. I gave a generous tip to the hotel owner. And the local who introduced me to the hotel, they are all in the same group. Leon finally understood why the man he met on the street was so enthusiastic. He even helped carry the luggage and bargained with the vendors for Leon. In the end, Leon accepted his suggestion and stayed in the hotel. Looking back now, everything makes sense. Then, how did you get out? Ron asked. They hinted that I should either plead guilty and be deported, or they would not pursue the property and let it go. What could I do? I couldn't even contact the German embassy. They took you away on the spot and made it impossible for you to contact the outside world. That's it. Leon cursed again. Dude, don't travel alone in India, especially as a foreigner, Ron gave him advice. I bet they figured this out before they did it. I'm sorry I didn't accept your offer last time, otherwise, no, I should have called you earlier, I was too confident. I thought I knew this place well enough. I lived in Mumbai alone for more than a week without any guide. I was even proud of it. Where are you staying now? I said it was robbed. Youth hostel, 100 rupees a night. Leon shrugged. That damn place was barely habitable, but cheap. Leon pawned his beloved Pelican pen to exchange for a few nights' accommodation. So what are your plans now? Ron asked casually. I want to go to Delhi. I have a colleague who is still there. But I have no money, you know. Leon looked very embarrassed. He knew that such a request was a bit rude. Why not call him? It won't cost a few rupees. All my business cards were taken away, and I can't remember the numbers. Only a pen was saved because I hid it under my tie. The plane ticket to Delhi costs about 1,000 rupees, and the train ticket costs about 200 rupees. I choose the train ticket. The train ticket is fine, Leon said hurriedly. Dude, you have to give me a reason. Ron looked at him with amusement. I'm in the tourist business, but now I need to pay the tourists. This doesn't make sense, I know, it's really hard to explain. After all, we just met, and I made such a request. Leon was a little embarrassed, but soon cheered up again. But don't worry, I will give you a generous reward when I arrive in Delhi. I have money. I am the marketing director sent by Siemens to India for inspection. Siemens? Ron raised his eyebrows. How do you prove it? Well, all my business cards have been taken away. I can't prove myself now. But do you know Cipla Pharmaceuticals? Its headquarters is in Mumbai, of course. Everyone in India knows Cipla. Cipla is the second largest pharmaceutical factory in India, and Ranbaxy ranks first. They are star companies in India, and the people are also proud of these two generic drug factories. Siemens has a medical imaging business, and Cipla and Ranbaxy's laboratories happen to need this kind of equipment. This is my mission here. If everything goes well, Siemens may invest in India. I know this. The government has relaxed investment restrictions in most industries this year, which has attracted many foreign investors to India. Yes, that's it. Leon was very happy that Ron understood what he meant. Have you visited Cipla? They should be very interested in you. Well, I did, but they didn't believe me. I didn't have anything to prove myself. I shouldn't have dragged it on for so long. I wanted to investigate the local conditions and customs here first to assess whether it was suitable for Siemens to invest, but Ron roughly understood what was going on. Leon didn't want to alarm Cipla too early. He also had other tasks to investigate India. He wanted to understand the most real India, but he didn't want to encounter what happened later. Now, after this period of personal experience, what do you think of India? Ron asked. It's hard to say. Leon looked tangled. Haha, all right. I'll arrange your train ticket to Delhi. Any problem tomorrow? No problem, the sooner the better. Look, there are still good people in India. Don't be depressed, buddy. There are good and bad people everywhere in the world. We'll meet at Victoria railway station tomorrow morning. Regardless of whether what he said was true or not, the 200 rupees of the ticket were nothing to Ron. Just think of it as listening to a story, and this ticket was the reward. Besides, with his relationship with the railway station, it would be easy for him to get a free ticket. Oh, by the way, the 200 rupees bought a regular seat ticket. Are you ready to experience India's famous human train? What? Leon suddenly had a bad feeling. Chapter 83 Human Train. Victoria railway station was still as busy as ever. Leon had never been to a railway station in India. He had traveled mostly by plane before. The metal sky formed by the arched wave ceiling extended exaggeratedly into the distance, and the pigeons were the little angels in the metal sky. They flew from one roost to another, flying very high, and their figures were vaguely visible. Below was a crowded and noisy crowd, who were densely packed in this magnificent railway station. It was famous for its detailed facade, high tower, exterior decoration and grand style. Leon felt incredible and extremely awkward at the same time. Dirty and messy India actually had such a work of art-like building, and the awkward thing was that it was not surprising that it was dirty and messy. He had been in the reception of Ron's company in the railway station for almost an hour. The platform outside was full of people, luggage, bundles of goods, and various living and dead livestock. Yes, some people were leading sheep and some were holding dogs, all waiting for the train. Some chickens were probably suffocated and had now been abandoned on the platform by their owners. There was a large group of people milling around between the two immobile trains. The guy named Anand ran into the crowd. This was the 5th time Leon had seen him leave. A few minutes later, he saw him come back for the 5th time. "Please, friend, you can sit down," Leon couldn't help but persuade him. "No, sir," Anand shook his head. "Then let's get on the train." "You can't get on the train either. It's not time yet." Leon looked helplessly at Ron, who was leisurely beside him. "What time did you get the ticket for?" "It doesn't matter. The timetable of Indian railway stations is useless. You will suffer a great loss if you look at it, but we have been waiting for an hour." "Will the train be late for so long?" "It will be soon." "It won't be long. Listen carefully, Ron, listen carefully." There was a radio, probably speaking in English. It was like the voice of an angry drunk, coming through many old cone-shaped loudspeakers, with a unique sound change effect. Anand listened to the radio, and his expression changed from worry to extreme pain. Now, sir. Hurry. We have to hurry." Wait, you just asked me to sit here like a bronze Buddha for almost an hour, and now you are so anxious. Stop talking nonsense, man. This is an ordinary ticket for the Indian train. Come on, let me let you experience the real India." Ron pulled him to the platform. "Yes, there is no time to build a big Buddha. Ask for forgiveness from this saint," Anand shouted. "You have to be ready." "What?" Leon stumbled and ran after them. "He's coming," Ron suddenly laughed. "Who's coming?" Leon was at a loss now. No matter what the broadcast said, it had already mobilized the crowd. They rushed to the two parked trains, shoving their luggage and themselves into the doors and windows. A man walked out of the noisy crowd and walked towards Ron and the others. He was tall and strong, one of the tallest men Leon had ever seen in his life. He was 2 meters tall, with solid muscles, and a long and dense beard hanging down on his sturdy chest. He was wearing the uniform of a porter at the Mumbai railway station, with a hat, shirt and shorts all made of yellow linen. Ron pointed at Leon beside him and said to the man, "Take him up." The porter was experienced in dealing with foreigners, and he first extended his hands. Leon thought he wanted to shake hands, so he also extended his hands. As a result, he pushed Leon's hands away, and his expression clearly told the other party how much he hated that gesture. Then he put his hands under Leon's armpits, lifted him up and put him next to the luggage to avoid blocking his way. Leon weighed more than 80 kilograms, and being lifted up so easily made him feel embarrassed and excited. He decided at the moment that as long as it was not too embarrassing, he would cooperate with the porter obediently. "Brother, just wait and see," Ron laughed behind him. "Damn it, you didn't tell me there was such an arrangement." Leon was so angry that he spoke German directly. As he spoke, the big man took his backpack on his head and waved his other strong arm. Ron immediately pushed Leon behind him and grabbed the big man's yellow linen shirt. "Come on, grab this shirt." "What?" "Hold on tight, don't let go. Promise me solemnly that you will never let go of this shirt." Seeing his unusually serious expression, Leon couldn't help but nod his head and agreed, holding the porter's shirt tightly. "Very good, never let go, Ron. Make him say it word for word." "I will never let go of this shirt," Anand encouraged from the side. "Please," I said, "I will never let go of this shirt." Satisfied, Leon did it speechlessly. "Goodbye, Leon." Ron stood there and waved vigorously. "See you later, sir." Anand ran into the crowd. "What? Where are you going?" Ron, okay. Let's go," the porter roared in a low voice. He turned and walked into the crowd, dragging Leon. He raised his thick knees and kicked his feet out with every step he took. The people in front of him automatically dispersed, and those who did not disperse were pushed aside by him. He shouted threats, insults, and curses all the way, and pushed a path through the suffocating crowd. Every time he raised his strong and powerful legs and kicked forward, someone fell down and was pushed aside. The crowd was extremely noisy, and the noise was like drumbeats hitting Leon's skin. The crowd shouted and screamed, as if they were fleeing. The loudspeakers above their heads roared and broadcast incoherent and incomprehensible broadcasts. The sound of whistles, bells, and whistles continued to wail. Leon felt like he was being dragged and hit by a bulldozer into the carriage. The carriage was as overloaded as the other carriages, and the door was blocked by a thick wall of people, a wall of flesh made up of legs, backs, and heads. It seemed impossible to get through, and Leon backed down. But the porter roared, and he subconsciously grabbed the shirt in his hand. With the help of the porter's invincible and powerful knees, Leon squeezed into the carriage. He kept pushing forward with the shirt in his hand and stopped in the middle of the carriage. Leon guessed that the carriage was full, so the giant porter had to stop. He held the shirt tightly in his hand and made up his mind not to let go. The noisy carriage was packed like a can of sardines, and gradually Leon heard a voice. Sir, sir, sir. After a long time of distinguishing, Leon was sure that it was the porter's call. He let go of the shirt in his hand and looked around, and then he found that Anand, who had disappeared before, stretched out his body to occupy the entire bench. It was a window seat, and Anand was protecting the seat with his body. He wrapped his legs around the handrail on the aisle side and held the handrail on the window side with his hands. 6 men had squeezed into the carriage, and they each used their strength and rough methods to drive him away. They pulled his hair, hit him, kicked him, and slapped him. Anand, who was surrounded by people, had no power to fight back, but when his eyes met Leon's, he suddenly smiled triumphantly. Quick! Come here, he shouted. Seeing this scene, Leon didn't know where the blood rushed from, and he pushed the crowd away in anger. He didn't care about gentlemanly manners. He couldn't watch the man in front of him get beaten. That was the suffering for him to fight for a seat. Taking advantage of the crowd leaning, Anand immediately put his legs on the ground, and Leon also sat down tacitly. The remaining space on the bench immediately triggered a new round of competition. The porter threw the luggage at Leon's feet. His face, hair, and shirt were soaked with sweat. He glanced at Anand, then nodded to the window to show respect. Then, he left without looking back. It was only then that Leon noticed that Ron was standing outside the window of this carriage. How much did you pay to hire that man? He shouted at Ron. 70 rupees, 70 rupees, Leon couldn't believe it. The guy rushed into the carriage with him and his luggage, and only earned about $2. That guy is not easy to hire. Anand, who was standing beside him, straightened his clothes and stood up. His knees are very famous. Many people are vying for him. I told him that you have some mental problems, so he took this business, retarded. You told him that I am retarded. Leon's expression collapsed. No wonder the guy outside kept asking him to hold the porter's shirt tightly, and the porter looked at him. No, it's not, Anand frowned, thinking about what word to use. I think the word stupid is more appropriate. Let's get it clear. You told him I was a fool, so he agreed to help us. That's right, Anand grinned, but not just a little stupid, you are also very, very slow. Okay, I understand. Leon has let go of his stubbornness. I should go, sir. Anand said goodbye to him, then tucked in his round belly and got out of the window in a flash. Hey, men, are you okay? Leon still remembered how he had been beaten. No, not even a scratch. Good luck to Delhi, men. Ron laughed. Damn, you really surprised me. Leon laughed too. He had the illusion of surviving a disaster. Ordinary carriages in India are like this. You need a very good tour guide to squeeze into the train, like our Anand. Right, I agree. Well, thank you very much for your generosity anyway. Leon waved out the window. He still had an extra 100 rupees Ron gave him in his pocket for taxi fare. Remember not to give up your seat to the people around you. Anand also waved goodbye to him. When the train disappeared, Anand's face fell. Ron, we could have used our connections to get him into first class. You don't understand. Only if he has an unforgettable experience, he will remember that we helped him. If it was first class, he would probably sleep in Delhi and forget about it. So, my beating was not in vain. Anand touched his face. Of course, Ron laughed again. Come with me in a few days to discuss a big business. Where to? To buy land. I want to be a landlord in Mumbai. Ron waved his hand and left with great pride. Chapter 84 The Reasons to Do It. Mumbai finally had a bit of coolness in December, but it was just a matter of a coat. The temperature of more than 20 degrees would be considered early summer in other places. Ron hurriedly put on a thin shirt and got into Anand's taxi. The place they were going to was in the central part of Mumbai, which was actually considered a suburb, at least 30 kilometers away from the fortress area. Ron, do you really want to be a landlord? Yes, it will be my first asset. What do you plan to do with that piece of land? It was originally a textile factory, and I plan to turn it into an electrical appliance factory. Electrical appliance factory? I thought you were going to rent it to farmers. I know a lot of good farmers, and they are in the rural areas in the north of the state. What are you thinking? This is Mumbai. Although it is a suburb, it is the suburb of India's largest city. Well, actually I am not only an excellent tour guide, I am also a good farmer, but not on the factory. After listening to his explanation, Ram couldn't help laughing. Anand once talked about his hometown, which was a remote rural area in the north of Maharashtra. His father was the village chief and was highly respected. Unfortunately, Anand did not inherit his legacy, but chose to come to Mumbai. There are many young people like this in India. They would rather live in slums than return to the countryside where there is nothing. It's just that I can't understand, Ron. You have your own company and make a lot of money. Why do you want to run a factory? Where do we mainly make money from? Ron asked. Of course, foreigners, be more specific, commissions, and foreign currency, Anand answered while driving. Yes, foreign currency. How do we exchange the foreign currency after we get it? Of course, we give it to Hard Khan. He has a good price. That's the problem. Ron snapped his fingers. What's the problem? Anand shook his head. The exchange rate on the black market is low again. That's one aspect, but it's not the point. A large part of our profits depend on the foreign exchange black market, which is not our territory. No matter how the exchange rate changes, the black market is the most profitable business. This is true for Ron and Hard Khan. It is too important. The profits it brings make everyone who knows its rules covetous. Ron, did something happen? Anand asked uneasily. No, I'm just preparing for a rainy day. I don't understand. We are working well with Cad Khan now. That's because we haven't grown big yet. When one day the company monopolizes most of the foreign customers in Mumbai, problems will arise. Cad Khan once joked to him, Ron, your company has linked half of my people together. This may really be just a joke, or even a compliment, but Ron often feels nervous about it. This is not a good thing. When his company monopolizes most of the foreign customers, it also indirectly monopolizes most of the foreign currency inflow in the black market. Where will Cad Khan's men collect the money at that time? Will Ron be willing to give up that part of the price difference? Or even if he is willing, will Cad Khan still trust him like today? He is very weak now, and he has reached a gentleman's agreement with Cad Khan early on. But once the strength grows, the balance will inevitably be challenged. Ron has no intention of being in Mumbai's underground black market, and he doesn't want to be a gangster boss. This is not his ambition. So since the first time he met Cad Khan, Ron has been consciously looking for other ways. The tourism business is of course good, the market is almost blank, and there are no competitors. But the premise is that it can be operated safely and steadily, and the black market is a hurdle that cannot be avoided. The larger the scale, the more obvious the conflict. There is no need. He does not need to compete with the gangs for the foreign exchange black market. He has a longer-term vision, and he has many plans for the future in his mind. What he lacks is the original capital accumulation. Now he can take a small step forward. This time buying land is the beginning of future plans. As for the travel company, he will continue to do it, but he probably won't be the protagonist in the future. In the taxi, Anand was still thinking about Ron's words. His intuition told him that there was something wrong, but he couldn't tell where. Ron, are you worried about competing with Cad Khan for territory in the future? You're not stupid enough, Anand. I don't understand. Why can't we cooperate? Just like now, because this kind of thing is not decided by him and me. I run a company, and he has a whole gang behind him, so what? Indians are loyal and righteous. We just need to discuss it in advance. What did I say about you just now? I'm not stupid enough. No, I take it back. Amid the noise, the taxi has arrived. The outside is more desolate than Ron imagined, and it is completely unworthy of the term suburbs of a metropolis. Looking around, the nearby residential areas are sparsely populated, and there are not even decent buildings. All are dilapidated bungalows and shacks. Outside the residential areas, there are still many wastelands and woods, and Sharma's textile factory is located nearby. The factory building there looked uninhabited, with weeds growing everywhere in the corners, and spinning, rags, and disassembled machine parts scattered on the ground. Ron turned and looked to the south. The prosperous Mumbai Metropolitan Building could only be seen as a vague outline here. This was not like a suburb, at most it was just an upgraded version of a rural area. but geographically, it was indeed located in the center of Mumbai. It was outrageous, too damn outrageous. Under their feet, the road in the city center was bumpy. Both sides of the road were full of garbage that had not been cleaned up for a long time. Occasionally, one or two passers-by looked at them with timidity and curiosity. The only advantage was that it was not far from the seaside, and they could hear the sound of the waves. Because the sea breeze blew from time to time, there was no unpleasant smell like the streets of South Mumbai. Aha! The air was fresh, and Ron finally found something worthy of praise. By the way, the Bollywood studio was not far from here, it was just northwest of this damn place. Remember what Kavya said at the time? From Bollywood to downtown Mumbai, that's called going back to the city. Even the locals in India don't think this is the city of Mumbai, which shows how remote Sharma's textile factory is. Anand parked the taxi on the side of the road, and they prepared to walk into the factory. The scattered debris blocked the way, not to mention cars, even motorcycles couldn't get in. Before reaching the entrance of the textile factory, Ron saw a man in a turban waiting there. Is it Mr. Sir? Yes, Ron nodded. Mr. Sharma asked me to show you around. We have to hurry before the workers notice. What do you mean? Where's he? He can't come here. Someone is watching him. That would be bad. Ron and Anand looked at each other. Well, things were worse than they thought. Then lead the way. We have to see a lot of places. Ron was not going to rush the tour. This was the basis of his next plan. Chapter 85 Businessman. Sharma's textile factory is indeed very large, but it is not as outrageous as the hundreds of thousands of square meters he boasted. Ron estimated that it was at most 100 acres, which is about 60,000 to 70,000 square meters. This is reasonable. After all, this is Mumbai, where there are no large plots of land of more than 100,000 square meters. The conditions of the textile factory are worse than he imagined. The only cement brick building is the office area that serves as the front. It is a 3-story building that can be seen from the road. Many windows are empty without glass, and the shabby wooden doors are tilted, like an angel with broken wings. Ron did not go upstairs first, but wandered around the factory. Most of the 100 acres of land are idle, either with sundries or full of garbage. The entire textile factory has no walls, and it is all barbed wire like a legal slum. From the traces, it seems that there was originally a layer of cloth as a barrier. But now there are only rags left on it, and the rest has probably been pulled back by the people in the slums to hide bricks and tiles. Inside the wall, there are 3 rows of factories and a warehouse. Although they look neat, the materials used are cheap. The iron roof has rusted and the plywood has begun to peel. After walking around, Ron felt overwhelmed. There was only the ground left in this broken place. Have you worked here? He asked the man next to him. Of course, I'm here every day. Mr. Sharma asked me to watch over here. Is there anything else worth seeing in the workshop? It's been emptied. Machines, spinning, cloth, wood, everything that can be used. Who emptied it? Ron asked. Mr. Sharma sold the machines, and the workers took the spinning and cloth to pay for their wages. The wood was stolen. You just said you were watching here. Yes, what's in it? I don't know. The man shook his head like a rattle. Take us to see Sharma. Ron turned around. Sir, don't you want to go in and take a look? The man asked in surprise. No, there's nothing worth seeing. Sharma was hiding in a nearby residential building. It was a property he bought a long time ago, but few people knew about it. When Ron came to the door, he confirmed it again and again, and finally opened the door carefully. Of course, what made him most relieved was that Vinod didn't come with him. Anand, this short and thick melon, made people feel more at ease. There was only him and another servant in the room. This place was a temporary residence. His family had left Mumbai long ago. How is it? Did my textile factory surprise you? Sharma was very enthusiastic this time. It really surprised you. That broken place is worse than I thought. Hundreds of thousands of square meters? Machinery and equipment? Factory buildings? Tell me where they are. There was an accident, but it's not without benefits. What do you mean? Ron watched his performance quietly. The workers divided up everything in the warehouse, and they won't come to cause trouble in the future. That's their salary. We're even. Sharma's expression was very proud. For him, this was equivalent to getting rid of a big trouble. He knew the workers well. They had already done the most outrageous thing by picking the lock of the warehouse. Thanks to Gandhi, he brought the concept of non-violent non-cooperation to India. No matter how much suffering the Indian people endured, they would not resist. They would only endure silently and firmly believe that the suffering they suffered in this life would be compensated in the next life. Look, he owed the workers half a year's salary, so what? In the end, all he lost was a warehouse of worthless cheap cloth. The workers have nothing to do with me, but the bargaining chips you mentioned are greatly discounted, 10 million rupees. This is my latest offer. You can't do this, Mr. Sir, Sharma said anxiously. We agreed that I even rejected other buyers. Your textile factory is terrible, and my offer is also very sincere. There are no other buyers. I have investigated and I have friends in the newspaper. Ron's words made Sharma speechless. This was the truth. There were no other buyers. Recently, this area was made a mess by the Lady Elizabeth. Everyone who had shown interest in the textile factory before had been warned. Now the only one who dared to come to him to discuss the deal was this young man. Sharma struggled with extreme pain, but finally shook his head fiercely. Okay. But I want cash. Although Ron was a good bargainer, it was still better than the 5 million rupees offered by the gangsters. That was the real bargain. But it had to be in cash, and he still had a bank loan. If he went through the formal channels, the money would most likely be frozen directly. No problem. But are you interested in US dollars? Ron showed a harmless smile. US dollars? Sharma shuddered. Can you get US dollars, Mr. Sharma? It seems that you haven't read the business card I gave you at all. Oh, God, I remember. You opened a travel company and there are many foreigners. Sharma was immediately overjoyed. US dollars? Who can refuse US dollars? That's right, but large amounts of US dollars are not so easy to get. The exchange rate is a little lower. Ron made an insulting gesture to South Korea. What's the price? Sharma asked. 10 million rupees. I can only give you 250,000 US dollars, about 40 rupees to $1, which is 30% lower than the official price. After figuring it out, Sharma's eyelids twitched. The price on the black market is better than this, and they are only 25% lower than the official price. I know, but the black market can't give you 250,000 US dollars in cash at one time. And you will be targeted, you will become a fat sheep in their eyes. Sharma's eyelids twitched at this time, and his face twitched too. He was most afraid of hearing about gangsters now. The gangs in Mumbai not only talk about human relationships, but also about fighting and killing. How can I trust you? He asked. I run a company, just like you. Ron shrugged. We are all businessmen, so why do we have so much fighting and killing? Okay, but I will decide the time and place of the transaction. Between the gangs and Ron, Sharma trusted the latter more. No problem, but I'll take a look at your documents first, Ron agreed. What procedures? Sharma pretended to be confused. Property rights, taxes, and audit reports. Of course we have these, no problem. He walked into the room slowly, and after fiddling with it for a long time, he came out with a pile of scattered documents. Ron felt a little regretful. He should have brought a lawyer with him earlier. At the very least, Harris, the accountant, could do the job. He didn't look at the other materials. The key points were property rights, contracts, and taxes, but he didn't see what he wanted after flipping through them twice. What about the mortgage release contracts between the textile factory and the bank? What? Sharma habitually shook his head. Brother, I'm not an outsider. I said I'm a businessman. You owed the bank a loan, so there must have been something mortgaged at the beginning. I can't think of anything other than that piece of land that would allow the bank to lend money. The mortgage release procedures are being processed. It will be ready soon, no problem. Then let's talk about our transaction after the procedures are completed. Ron pretended to leave. Wait, Mr. Sir. Sharma stopped him with sweat on his forehead. I'm talking to the bank, but it will take some time. How much do you owe the bank? Ron simply got straight to the point. Less than 20 million. That piece of land is not worth 20 million. Why would the bank approve such a large amount for you? Ron asked curiously. There are other fixed assets of the textile factory, and the handling fee is also included in the extra part. Sharma gave him a look that everyone understood. My goodness, this is just like the last time he went to the bank to apply for a loan. The money Sharma actually got is not the same as the loan amount. The so-called handling fee is the bribe to the bank's senior officials. As for other fixed assets, it is probably equipment and other things. Now the money from selling them has been put into Sharma's pocket. In that case, why don't you find a way with the bank's people, the ones who hold the seal and make the decision? Ron hinted at him. Oh. What do you mean? Sharma vaguely grasped the key point. It seems that we have to have a good chat again. Ron's eyes flickered, and he also wanted to complete this deal as soon as possible. Chapter 86, The Chosen One. Ron's method was very simple. Since it was all bribery, it was better to be open. He asked Sharma to take out 1 million rupees as activity fees and go directly to the person in charge of the lending bank. There was only one purpose, to make the loan a bad debt. The mortgage contract and so on were all withdrawn. Banks have bad debts every year, and not all loans issued can be recovered, otherwise there would not be so many deadbeats. This is called legitimate loss, and there are even loss quotas within some banks. You see, isn't this reasonable? I am the great India, the kingdom of God on earth. Who can say anything if the bank has some bad debts? Believe it or not, I will smear your face with cow dung. After listening to this, Sharma slapped his belly fiercely. He almost forgot this traditional skill. America has Commissioner Smith, and India can also have Commissioner Rajesh. But isn't 1 million rupees a bit too much? Sharma felt a little painful. Brother, you owe the bank nearly 20 million. Is there a more cost-effective deal than using 5% of the cost to eliminate this debt? Ron was a little speechless. This guy is definitely a black-hearted capitalist. It's a good idea, but the former bank officials now hate me a little bit. Ron glanced at him. You still have some self-awareness. It's good that you didn't directly put a wanted order for playing missing with others. I know some officials who can help you as a middleman, but it will cost hundreds of thousands of dollars for the activity. Okay. As long as I can settle this account, Sharma gritted his teeth and agreed. 1 million has been paid, and the hundreds of thousands are not a big deal. He didn't want to be on the wanted list unless it was absolutely necessary. So far, today's negotiations have reached a preliminary verbal agreement. Ron cut the price of the land to 10 million rupees, and then used US dollars as bait to further reduce the price to 7 million rupees. The black-hearted capitalist Sharma will definitely not get that much in the end, and he will have to spend more than 1 million to bribe the bank. Finally, after a careful calculation, damn, it doesn't seem to be much more than selling it to the gangsters. But Sharma didn't plan to regret it, because Ron traded in US dollars, and that was US dollars. India's economy has been liberalized for a year, but the government's foreign exchange reserves have not improved. The whole country is still short of dollars. The matter has been settled, and Ron is indescribably happy. Finally, he has taken another step in his career. Ron, what are you going to produce in your factory? Anand asked curiously. There are too many textile factories in India, so there is no shortage of this one. I want to produce electrical appliances, which is what the Indian people need most. Wow. High tech, then you need a lot of engineers. You also know engineers. Ron looked at him with admiration. The most ideal profession in the hearts of Indian women is doctors, and the most ideal profession in the hearts of men is engineers. Everyone knows this. I thought the most ideal profession for Indians was government officials. Oh, of course that ranks first, but engineers are the first choice after officials. To put it bluntly, becoming an engineer is already the ceiling for low-caste people. Officials? That's all reserved for high-caste people. Ron, by the way, since we are so happy today, let's go find some fun. What fun? Ron looked at him suspiciously. What are you up to? Come with me, quickly. I promise you won't regret it. Wait, where are we going? Get in the car. Anand stepped on the accelerator and drove Ron to a nearby alley. He had already inquired about it and there was a hotel nearby that had exciting programs. When Ron stepped into the corridor on the second floor of the hotel, he felt something was wrong. Are you planning to find a call girl? She's a very beautiful woman, Anand said excitedly. She's fat, and fat in the most important and crucial parts. No matter where she grabs, you can hold it in your hands. You will be very excited and addicted to it. Oh my god. Ron stopped. Are you serious? You don't like it? It doesn't matter. As long as you see her, you will be fascinated by her. No, I'm not in the mood. I know many more beautiful girls. Mood is okay, Ron Bamba. As long as you get started, your bad mood will get better, very quickly. Don't call me dad, please. Ron, we're here. Go see her first. She's very experienced. Those people told me that she has served hundreds of guests in this hotel alone. You come on, Ron. If I don't go see her, I won't get my deposit back. Anand begged. Have you paid? Yes, you need to book in advance. Why do you have such an idea? Ron stared at him. You are surrounded by foreign girls, but no Indian girls. This is prejudice. I want to broaden your horizons. India also has very charming women. I have to win glory for my country." Anand sighed, raised his hands, and then dropped them to his sides, looking helpless. "Okay," Ron imitated him and made helpless movements. "I'll go take a look and let you keep your deposit." They walked to the other end of the corridor and stopped outside a room. Anand was shaking with excitement, his eyes widened to a worrying degree. At his signal, Ron knocked on the door. Almost instantly, the door opened and a 50-year-old woman stood at the door. She was wearing a red and yellow sari and glared at them fiercely. There were several men in the room behind her. They were wearing loincloths and white hats, sitting on the floor to eat potatoes, rice and ramen. The woman walked out of the room and came to the corridor, locked the door, and looked at Anand steadily. Anand was a head shorter than her, not even up to her shoulders. Facing the woman's fierce eyes, he responded with the obedient expression of a school bully. "See, Ron," he whispered, his eyes still fixed on the woman. "Am I right?" Ron's forehead was bulging with veins. This was an ordinary woman. She had a bulbous nose, a large face, and thin lips that were pursed in disdain, making her mouth look like a clam with a stick stuck in it. The powder on her face and neck was thick, a bit like that of a geisha. Her tense expression made her look like a villain. "Show him," Anand said in Marathi. The woman then pulled her sari up, revealing a large circle of fat belly. She pinched a few pounds of flesh with her short and thick fingers and raised her eyebrows to Ron, hoping to get his praise. Ron's face was expressionless, and Anand groaned, his eyes widened. Seeing this, the woman's face was furious. She looked left and right in the corridor, and then lifted her shirt a little more. Then she grabbed the thing and swung it up and down several times, blinking continuously, with an expression full of ill will, contempt and ridicule. Anand's eyes opened wider, his mouth opened wide. And he began to gasp. Ron still had no expression on his face, and he was even trying to hold back something. The woman was anxious, she shook her head left and right, and threw her long black hair into a braid to her chest. She grabbed the braid with both hands, and squeezed her fingers under the braid like squeezing toothpaste. Finally, as she squeezed, a thick layer of coconut oil accumulated on her fingers. Coconut oil dripped from the end of the braid onto the worn and white carpet. "You know, Ron," Anand spoke incoherently, staring at the dripping oil in amazement, his expression hungry and almost terrified, "if you really don't want to, I can use the deposit myself." Ron couldn't control himself anymore, covered his mouth and fled. He ran all the way to the bathroom, and he lay on the basin and retched for several minutes. The stench on the streets of Mumbai is not that terrible, right? God, is this guy Anand a follower of Slanesh? He finally suppressed the churning in his stomach, and when he looked up, Anand was already standing at the door in a daze. Ron looked up at his watch. It had only been about 5 minutes since he came in. "Wow. Ron," he moaned happily and grinned at the ceiling. "I was right. She is an experienced woman." Ron looked at him, bewildered. "Really?" He looked intoxicated, and his short legs even began to shake. "She gave me a great service. I'm sure she was very happy too. Come on, let's have a drink and celebrate." "Anand, are you really a Hindu? You haven't joined any weird church or salon." "Oh, what are you talking about? Of course I am loyal to Lord Mara. Let's not talk about that for now. Let's have a drink. I need to calm down." Anand pulled Ron downstairs. When they stepped into the street, several figures quietly followed them. Chapter 87 Scolding. "Do you feel someone is following us?" "Where?" Anand turned around and saw all kinds of poor Indians on the street. "Maybe it's my illusion." Ron frowned and glanced at them, but he couldn't see anything unusual. "Don't worry, you didn't get enough of that woman just now, but you'll have another chance next time." "Shut up. I'm going back to find 2 foreign girls to clean my eyes." "Oh. Are you not satisfied? I know other women." "Anand, you're about to kill my last thoughts about Indian women, and it's all your fault." "Okay, let's go drink. Drinking can make you forget about women." Very quickly, Anand led the way, and they came to a simple bar. The place was overcrowded, and in order to get a seat, Ron asked the boss to give each of the drinkers a glass of wine, and then they made room on the narrow stone bench. Ron couldn't understand why Anand came here. Just looking at the facade, he knew that this place was a so-called unlicensed bar, which served over-standard spirits at a price lower than the market price. "Is this the very popular bar you mentioned? They have a lot of unique drinks." Anand's eyes were full of anticipation. "For example, beer brewed from cow urine, Ron wanted to vomit again. He tried to leave, but Anand hurriedly grabbed him. Don't be afraid, they also have normal drinks, such as whiskey. You know that's not normal. This time it was Ron's turn to widen his eyes. I'm just curious, I haven't drunk it before. There was curiosity in Anand's round eyes, the kind of itchy curiosity. So you want to try it? Ron suddenly sat back. Of course he wouldn't drink cow urine, but he liked to watch others drink cow urine. Well, just curious. Anand's eyes hesitated. A glass of yellow beer was placed in front of him, and the bar owner looked at him teasingly. If you can finish 5 glasses, all your consumption today will be free. Really? When it came to money, Anand instantly perked up. The bar owner whistled and signaled to the other drinkers in the room with his eyes. Ron and Anand turned their heads. Among the guests were workers, farmers, and a group of hooligans. They all had angry and suppressed expressions. These people didn't talk much, or didn't talk at all. They held the same beer in front of Anand, and every time they raised their heads to drink, their faces twisted violently, making them look even uglier. Every time they finished a glass, they made various snoring, painful groans, and vomiting sounds. Just seeing this scene, Ron couldn't help but clench his back teeth. See? Those are challengers. The bar owner's tone was a bit provocative, encouraging, and tempting. Anand began to pant, then he raised his head suddenly, pinched his nose, and poured the wine into his mouth. He drank the wine in one breath with a strong determination. The wine was really hard to drink, and everyone looked like they were trying hard to hold on. Some people couldn't stand it, snicked away, and lost. Some people were shaken, but encouraged by the painful faces of their drinking buddies next to them, they held on. Anand almost didn't stop and drank 4 glasses in a row. At the 5th glass, he hesitated. Just when Ron thought he was going to give up, Anand took a breath and gulped down the last glass. He threw the empty glass aside, jumped into the middle of the shabby bar, and began to sing the Hindi love song that ran away loudly. Everyone in the room cheered excitedly, and Ron frowned and laughed. He decided not to talk to Anand today. He wanted to stay away from that mouth, which was a mouth that could spit shit. By the way, is there really cow urine in this beer? Ron asked the bar owner quietly while everyone was singing. The bar owner nodded his head towards the back door with a proud expression. Ron took a look and saw that there was a yard outside the back door. There were several cows there, and workers were holding buckets under the cows' stomachs while they were still hot, waiting for something. Well, his stomach began to churn again. When Anand started to enjoy the free drinks next, Ron didn't touch a single glass. To be honest, he had a psychological trauma about everything in this bar. By the time the two came out of the bar, it was getting dark. Their car was still parked a few streets away, in front of the hotel they visited during the day. The dim alley was desolate and silent, and Anand was still singing. Ron kept pushing him out, and the guy sang and leaned against him. A white ambassador slowly drove past them, then stopped, and turned around. Stop singing. There's something wrong with that car. Ron woke up and pushed Anand. What? Anand asked drunkenly. While he was talking, the car had already driven in front of them and blocked them at the intersection. No. Run. Ron pulled Anand and turned around and ran away. The speed was so fast that the people in the white ambassador were also stunned, but the 4 men quickly got out of the car and chased them. Run. Anand turned around in panic. What happened? It must be bad. I guess they were following them during the day. Ron ran faster than anyone else. He didn't drink, but just ate some flying cakes and grilled chicken. But Anand couldn't do it. He was drunk and staggering. If Ron hadn't held him back, he would have fallen to the ground. I can't do it, Ron. Anand began to pant. Don't relax. Think about the effort you put on that woman during the day, and sprint with all your strength. The alley was very narrow. Ron was in front and Anand was behind. Behind him were 4 men who were slowly closing the distance. They were stupid enough not to block the alley at the other end. The shouting and cursing were getting closer and closer, and Anand's eyes were desperate. When he passed a pile of bamboo poles, he gritted his teeth, hugged a few bamboo poles, turned around and rushed towards the 4 men. Run, run, what? Ron turned around. He saw Anand holding the bamboo and bumping into several men. For a moment, people and horses fell to the ground, and shouting and screaming were endless. Ron paused, but immediately accelerated and ran to the street, where there was a place to make a phone call. In just a moment, the 4 men lost sight of Ron. They took out their anger on Anand, who was punched in the mouth and nose and slapped several times. Anand jumped up and tried to fight back, but was quickly beaten down again. The men held him down and began to search his pockets with expert hands. Anand began to curse with a contemptuous tone, denouncing the group of people for beating and looting the poor, which was really embarrassing for Dalits. He cursed them passionately, calling them cowards, Mahatma Gandhi, his non-violent non-cooperation, Buddha, Hindu gods, Mother Teresa, and Bollywood star Amitabh Bachchan. He didn't know why he cursed these people, he just hated India at that moment. Ron panted and found a phone to make a call. Before the shop owner could stop him, he threw a 100-rupee note. "Johnny, it's me. Quick. Bring some people over, I need help." "Oh. Man, you sound bad, tell me where you are." Ron looked at the shop owner, who made a gesture. "Lavidan Road. The second alley from the west, I'll notify the nearest people nearby. 10 minutes. Hold on for 10 minutes. After hanging up the phone, Ron turned around and wanted to run back. Anand, that bastard, must not be beaten to death. Ron, the surprise cry made him pause. He turned around with a gasp. Mary. Chapter 88 Trouble. "Why are you here?" Ron and Mary asked each other at the same time. "Let's talk about you first." Mary looked at him. "What's the hurry?" "Oh, damn." Ron turned and ran. "I have to save Anand." "What?" Mary subconsciously chased after him. "Don't come. Mary, it's dangerous over there. Help me call some people, anyone can do, I'm that helper." Mary gestured to the taxi on the side of the road, and soon Lena also ran over. "Oh my God, go back." Ron turned around and saw the two girls following behind him, and immediately signaled them to find someone quickly. It was very dangerous ahead, and he didn't want to involve innocent Mary and Lena, especially since they were women. "I want to say that you underestimated us too much." Mary smiled mysteriously at him, and then exerted force on her feet and instantly surpassed him. The agile figure was incredibly fast. Compared with her, Ron was like a toddler. Not only Mary, but even Lena easily passed him without any effort. "Hey, is this here?" Mary pointed to an alley in front. "Yes, but don't do that, Mary. There are 4 men there. You know what Indian men will do when they catch a woman, right?" Ron hadn't finished his words when Mary and Lena disappeared at the alley entrance. He was stunned. How could these 2 girls run so fast? They were very well behaved in bed, even weak. Those thighs. Well, they were indeed very firm, but they felt soft to the touch. But now, there was no trace of softness. They were all athletes. Ron's feet kept moving as a mess of thoughts floated through his head. When he ran to the alley entrance, he saw several men fleeing in the distance. As for Mary and Lena, they were bending down to check on Anand. Without thinking too much, Ron rushed over and lay on the ground. "Hey, Anand. Can you still hear me?" Anand half closed his eyes. One of his eye sockets had turned black, and his nose was swollen, but not broken. His lips were cracked and a little swollen. There were several large skin breaks on his cheeks and chin because of being kicked. Ron felt his pulse and listened to his breathing. Fortunately, his breathing was regular and strong, and it seemed that it was just a superficial injury. "Did I beat them away?" Anand asked in a daze. "Yes, you are so fucking awesome," Ron cursed and laughed. "I said that I am the best tour guide in Mumbai, in every aspect, I agree. But you are too stupid. There are 4 of them, and you don't even know if they are armed." Ron blamed him and felt very guilty. He was not the kind-hearted Indian that Anand said. He did not stop. Perhaps he should have turned around, otherwise Anand would not have been beaten so badly. "Ron, you are a good man." Anand, who was seeing stars, recovered a little. "People in the slums say so. Without you, there would be no one to treat the patients there." "You are also a good man, Anand." Ron helped him up, feeling more and more guilty. "We are all good people," he grinned with a broken mouth. "Yes, they are all good people." Ron carried him to the alley. Mary and Lena looked at each other, shrugged, and followed him. "Did you beat them away just now, Ron?" "No, it was Mary and the others." "Wow. You are as drunk as me, and the cow urine is very strong, right?" "I'm not kidding, really, really." Anand wanted to turn his head and look back, but the wound on his neck prevented him from completing the action. They walked to the intersection. And suddenly another group of people rushed towards them. Ron subconsciously pulled Anand back, and Mary and the others also put their hands in their pockets with serious expressions. "Ron!" The shout instantly made both parties relieved. With a weak light on the street, Ron realized that the tall figure was Johnny. "I didn't expect you to be so fast. How is it? Are you okay?" Johnny walked over with his men, and he unconsciously glanced at Mary and Lena behind him. His intuition told him that the two were not easy to mess with. "My friend suffered some minor injuries, and those guys ran away. But thank you anyway, Johnny. I'm glad you're okay." Johnny patted his shoulder comfortingly. "Caterpie already knows what happened tonight. He asked you to go there tomorrow, to this address." "Okay." Ron took the note. He didn't ask any more questions. He also knew that this was not an ordinary gang robbery. Johnny said a few words to him and left. Ron and the others had already got into the taxi. A series of things made people overwhelmed. Anand had fallen asleep, Lena sat in the front seat, and Mary sat next to Ron. "Oh, by the way, why are you here?" It was only then that Ron remembered his original question. "The work on the set has ended today, and we are on our way back." Mary looked at him strangely. Ron suddenly realized that he almost forgot that Bollywood was not far away in the northwest suburbs. From the bay in Juhu district to the textile factory, it was even less than 5 kilometers. "Why are you here?" "I don't think there are any attractions nearby that are worth seeing for tourists," Mary asked. "That piece of land, the piece of land I'm going to buy is nearby, so, what happened today is related to that." "I don't know, I have to go get some information." Ron frowned, thinking it might be related. After Ron treated Anand's wound himself, he asked Vino to come and take him home. Although those people probably wouldn't chase him to South Mumbai, it's better to be careful. Before leaving, Anand told Ron that when those people beat him, they also cursed at them to stay away from Sharma. Well, the matter was just as Ron guessed, it was related to the textile factory. When Anand and the others disappeared into the night, Ron immediately went upstairs and picked up the phone in Mary's apartment. He had Sharma's contact information. After they reached a verbal agreement during the day, they left each other numbers that could be dialed. 2 minutes later, no one answered the phone. "It doesn't look like things are going well," Mary asked with her arms folded. She had just taken a shower, and her chest was bulging in her pajamas, and the outline of her hips was faintly visible. Lena was still in the bathroom, and the sound of dripping water accompanied by cheerful humming could be heard from time to time. "I can't contact the owner of the textile factory," Ron frowned. His intuition told him that the other party was in trouble. Perhaps it was the gang just now, or perhaps he was hiding. "What are you going to do?" Mary shrugged. She actually hoped that Ron would focus on the Bollywood business. "Go find Hard Khan, the Mumbai gangster. Have you heard of him? This name is often mentioned in Bollywood, and I know you have business dealings with him. So you plan to go now?" "No, things have come to this. Of course we'll talk about it tomorrow." Since he was here, and Lena was also washing white, he would leave the recent stock with them before leaving. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 89: The Tip of the Iceberg. Ron was woken up by the cold in the morning, and the cool morning air penetrated him from all directions. When he opened his eyes, he was lying naked on the side. No wonder, it turned out that 2 human-shaped hot water bottles kicked him away. Yawning, Ron moved his butt to get closer. "If I had known you still had strength, I shouldn't have let you go so easily last night." Mary was slightly hurt by his pinch, and couldn't help but slap a mischievous hand away. "Last night was last night, and today is today." "Oh, actually I'm a little hungry, Ron." On the inside, Lena muttered and turned over. Not only was she talking in her sleep early in the morning, but she was also thinking about beautiful things. Ron took back his hand embarrassedly. "Can I ask a question?" He wisely changed the subject. "What?" "Yesterday you and Lena easily dealt with those 4 Indian men. I didn't see it, but I think it must be very dangerous. Are you going to ask if we have this ability?" "Well, I'm a little curious." Ron stole a glance at her. To be honest, he was also frightened by such skills. Last night, he even gave up the initiative and only used 40% to 50% of his skills. "You can understand it as the result of some kind of training." Mary turned over, and the water bag on her chest swayed from side to side. "That's it," he was attracted. "That's it. Lena and I have been living on this skill for a long time. You must not like that time, maybe, but we were used to it at that time." This was not the answer Ron wanted. and Mary had no intention of explaining in depth. He did not continue to ask. He knew that the timing was not right, or they were not ready yet. "Are you going to solve yesterday's matter today?" Mary asked. "At least get some information." "When?" "Now." Ron got up, put on his clothes and went downstairs. Looking at his back, Mary's eyes flashed with worry. "Where's Ron?" Lena, who had just woken up, looked around. "Gone? So soon?" Lena was a little disappointed. Last night, Ron carried her around the room, and she fell asleep from exhaustion without realizing it. He had planned to let her be the night today, but he didn't see anyone at all. After visiting North Mumbai, Ron deeply felt the heritage of South Mumbai as a CBD area. Not to mention the high-rise buildings, even the construction sites with clanging sounds everywhere are much more lively than North Mumbai. But that's all. As soon as he went downstairs, he frowned at the various smells. Many roads are still bumpy, and every time a three-wheeled vehicle jumps over, a large pool of sewage splashes. On the garbage dumps on both sides of the street, rats come out to look for food as usual, and each one is as fat as a piglet. A yellow taxi on the side of the road honked, and Ron saw Vino waving at him. "How is Anand?" Ron got into the taxi. "He's fine, he's very happy. Frida is taking care of him, just like treating a hero." Vino was smiling. "I'll go see him again on Thursday." Ron was going to the slum for a consultation that day. "Next time you do something good like this, you have to call me, Ron." "Good thing. Although Indians are sentimental and righteous, we are not afraid of being bullied. I have learned wrestling and have been learning since I was a child." Ron suspected that the last sentence was the reason why he thought this was a good thing. "Where are you going today?" "To this address." Ron handed him a note. The car drove in the direction due north of the Colaba district for an hour, and finally slowed down on the outskirts of the Bandra district, on a street lined with shops and supermarkets, and then turned into an alley. The alley was very deserted, and Ron could hardly see anyone when he opened the car door, but he heard the sound of music. After telling Vino to wait for him here, Ron walked to the other end of the alley. It was his first time here, and perhaps Adhan lived nearby. Passing through an archway, there were several guards standing at the entrance of the yard. He didn't need to explain. Johnny came out to lead him in. First there was a corridor, then 2 flights of stairs, and the music became louder. Pushing open the door, it was a large room full of people, smoke, and noisy music. The room was rectangular and hung with green silk fabrics and carpets. At the other end of the room was a small raised stage, on which 4 musicians sat on silk mats and played songs. There were low tables against the wall, on which were placed various snacks and food. Waiters moved between groups of people, serving black tea in long glass cups. Some people were smoking hookahs, and the air was dotted with wisps of blue smoke, rising and swirling. Ron frowned slightly when he saw this scene. It was obvious that this was a typical Muslim gathering, and his identity was a bit embarrassing. But he soon regained his composure. Since Qadir Khan didn't mind him as a pagan, what else could he, who was a fake, say? "Qadir Bey is talking to someone. He'll be there soon." Johnny patted him on the shoulder and walked into the crowd on his own. He seemed to be very famous. Several people stood up to greet him. Some people hugged him warmly and held his hands tightly. Ron looked at the crowd and soon he saw some acquaintances. For example, Rafiq, the hot-tempered man of the Shiva army. Later, he heard from Dhiren that the red light district near the Colaba slums was under his control, as well as some other grey businesses. In addition to him, Ron also recognized some people through photos in the newspaper, including famous politicians and some well-known Bollywood stars. Ron now believes that this is not Had Khan's residence, but a private club. He saw a man dressed as a manager standing next to Had Khan. There was a round dark bruise on his forehead, which was a scar caused by the Muslims during prayer. The manager shouted and gave instructions, asking someone to immediately bring in a new table and some cushions and put them in a corner of the room where the stage could be seen clearly. "Ron, come here." Had Khan sat in his new seat and waved at him. Ron walked over and sat cross-legged, and Johnny also came to the seat on his left. A waiter brought fried spicy rice with chili powder and a large plate of mixed dried fruits. The waiter who served tea held the thin-mouthed teapot 1 meter away from the glass cup, and poured hot tea in midair without splashing a drop of water. Not to mention, this trick is a bit like the tea art performance in his hometown. Of course, the third brother's technique is not as good as the 18 dragon forms, so it's just a gimmick. "Remember the way to drink Persian black tea?" Had Khan looked at him with a smile. Of course, Ron picked up a piece of sugar cube and clamped it between his upper and lower teeth, then picked up the cup and sipped it in small sips. It's very authentic. And even Persians can't find fault with it, Had Khan laughed. He laughed very loudly. A Hindu drank tea in the Persian way, which seemed to hit his funny bone. Yesterday, my people were beaten. Ron waited for the sugar in his mouth to melt and then spoke. I know that when you were blocked, my people had already received the news. He restrained his smile and his expression became slightly serious. So you know who the other party is? Ron put down his teacup and sat up straight. Hadhan nodded slightly, with an inexplicable look in his eyes. Chapter 90 Club. The room was noisy, not only with music, but also with people talking to each other. Occasionally, someone cast an inquiring look at the small corner where Ron and the others were, but no one came forward to disturb them. Have you heard of Mrs. Elizabeth? Hardhan also sipped his tea. I only know that she has just arrived in Mumbai and seems to be planning to do business in the red light district. You are well informed. Hardhan glanced at him in surprise, but it is also a bit outdated. Why? Ron asked curiously. That's just the appearance. Elizabeth is not a person without foundation. She is very powerful and knows many powerful big men, so she is determined to get Sharma's textile factory. For Elizabeth, nothing is necessary. The only difference is whether she likes it or not. An elderly man came over and sat at Hardhan's feet. He was wearing a simple cotton shirt and loose thin trousers. His face was deeply wrinkled, and his body was thin and hunched. He was obviously very poor. The two stopped talking and quietly looked at the man grinding tobacco leaves and hemp with his rough hands. A few minutes later, he handed a hookah to Cad Khan and lit it with a match. This is Omar, the best hookah maker in Mumbai. Cad Khan squinted his eyes and puffed. The man named Omar grinned, revealing his toothless mouth, and reveled in the praise. He handed the hookah to Ron, with a critical look, ready to observe his skills and lung capacity. But Ron refused. Mumbai was full of hemp, and he always insisted on this. Omar was a little dissatisfied. He sucked the rest of the hookah in one breath, sucking hard, and his thin chest was swollen as if it was about to explode. After he cleaned up the remaining white ash from the hookah, he nodded to Cad Khan and left without looking at Ron the whole time. You missed the best hookah in Mumbai. Cad Khan laughed. Omar also manages the tobacco shop business in Bandra district. Ron shrugged. He didn't care. But I didn't expect that Omar, who looked like a poor man just now, was actually a small leader in a certain area. Elizabeth took action yesterday to teach you a lesson. She was warning you. Cadhan finally returned to the topic. I guess so. Anand told me. Is she really planning to build a palace in that damn place? Ron frowned. Palace? No, the palace has been built. Elizabeth bought a former shopping mall in Bandra district, away from these 3 streets. What? Ron was surprised. Then why did it happen yesterday? That textile factory, she doesn't need it at all. There is a Persian saying that sometimes lions have to roar, just to remind horses of fear. Do you understand, Ron? Ron understood that he was the horse. He dared to ignore the rumors spread by Elizabeth and contact Sharma. At that moment, he became the horse in Elizabeth's eyes. That textile factory. Ron paused, his expression serious. I want it very much, I can see that. Johnny told me about this when you went to the north. Johnny sat next to them. During the conversation, he was very quiet. When Hard Khan called him out, he just smiled at Ron. It was a very friendly and kind smile. He treated Ron as a friend, far more than the familiarity between ordinary friends. When he learned that Ron had set foot in another gang's territory, he went to Hard Khan. In Mumbai, such rash actions sometimes lead to fights. Fortunately, Ron was not Hard Khan's man. He was a businessman, which was a good protection. Gangs would exclude each other, but they were mostly very friendly to businessmen. Because businessmen could provide them with funds, which could be kickbacks or bribes. In short, it meant money. Elizabeth did not deal with Ron directly, but just had someone teach him a lesson. Because of this, she couldn't let other businessmen feel afraid, which was not conducive to the gang's taxation. That piece of land, Hard Khan picked up a dried fruit and stuffed it into his mouth, and drank another sip of red tea. I can help you get it, there won't be any trouble, including Elizabeth. What do I need to pay? Ron asked calmly. There is no free lunch in the world, and he didn't think that his relationship with Hard Khan was good enough to ignore Elizabeth's existence. Cadhan glanced at the stage. 3 singers came on stage and sat slightly in front of the musicians. The room gradually became silent, and people subconsciously stopped what they were doing. Listen to the songs first. Kadhan sat up straight, with the solemnity of a worshipper. Suddenly, the three singers began to sing loudly, with deep and moving voices. It was multi-layered music, with moving tunes and full of deep emotions. They were not only singing, but also crying and wailing through the songs. Tears flowed from their tightly closed eyes and dripped onto their chests. People sank into it, and followed the songs with sorrow and worry. They sang 3 songs in a row, then quietly passed through the curtain, left the stage, and entered another room. "How is it, Ron?" Kadhan asked. "Great, I've never heard anything like this, sad and very powerful." "Is that Urdu?" "Yes, you know Urdu, I'm learning it. I'm learning many languages in India. Marathi, Urdu, Tamil, Bengali." "I didn't know you were still a linguist." Kadhan looked at him in surprise. "No, I just want to master more languages so that I can open a travel company in various states in the future." "Very good. Urdu is also one of the mainstream languages in the Persian Gulf countries, which will be very helpful for your career." Kadhan's eyes flashed. "Are they blind?" Ron remembered the scene of the 3 singers singing with their eyes closed just now. "You didn't know? They are the blind singers of Jeopardy, very famous in Mumbai, so they were born blind." Or later, Ron thought of some very bad rumors. Some gangs will pick orphans on the street, and the children with singing talent among them will be artificially blinded. This can make them more focused on singing, more likely to release emotions, and also win sympathy. They could see before, but a blindness incident occurred in a village near Gurpur, and these people became blind. "What do you mean?" Ron asked. "There were rebels and bandits hiding near the mountainous area of that village, and the villagers had to offer food and other help. They had no choice. Later, when the police and soldiers came, the rebels blinded about 20 people as a lesson, to warn other villagers. This kind of thing happens often. These singers are not from that village. But they happened to go there to perform, and they were really unlucky. They were blinded along with others. All of them, men and women, were tied to the ground, and their eyes were gouged out with bamboo sticks. Now they sing here, everywhere." Ron was speechless after listening to this. In this magical land, in addition to magic, there are all kinds of chilling things happening. "Let's talk about Urdu." Kadhan smiled, leaned over, and put his arm around Ron. "In India, people often touch each other when talking, and use gentle squeezing to emphasize their points. Ron has become accustomed to this way of talking, and he often does this." "Urdu?" Ron was a little confused. "Yes, this is also related to what we want to talk about. I will help you get that piece of land, and you also do me a favor." The sex scene began, and Ron took a breath unconsciously. Chapter 91 New Gameplay. Ron didn't know what kind of help Kadhan wanted him to do, or why it was related to Urdu. But he knew that today's meeting had entered the core topic. Most of the time, transactions were concluded in a few words in such a noisy environment. "What do I need to do?" he asked. "Travel agency." Kadhan withdrew his gaze from the stage. Ron looked at him in confusion, a little puzzled. "Your travel company should expand its business. I said that when your company is big enough, I will introduce another business to you, and that is the travel agency." Ron remembered their first long talk. At that time, he didn't take Kadhan's words to heart. Now it seems that his travel company has grown to a point where it is enough to attract Kadhan's attention. "I don't quite understand. What does this have to do with travel agencies?" "Tourism is a particularly profitable part of currency trading. Foreigners coming to India are one part, and Indians leaving India are another part. Your company only receives foreigners, but does not send Indians out. Only by doing both businesses can you make the most profitable part of the tourism industry." Ron's current company mainly receives foreigners, while travel agencies are the opposite. They receive Indians. Although they are essentially receiving tourists, the operating models of the two are very different. Take Ron's current travel information company as an example. He doesn't need to invest too much to start this business in Mumbai. Travel agencies, however, require him to send Indian customers to all parts of the world and take care of their food, drink and entertainment in the local area. It doesn't take much thought to know that the latter is very troublesome. Ron must master all the resources of popular tourist routes around the world. He doesn't think he can do this now, and he doesn't plan to invest. Kadar travel agencies are very troublesome, and I don't have the money to explore foreign travel routes now." "No, Ron, you misunderstood." Kadar laughed. "I said Urdu, Persian Gulf, This travel agency specializes in tourism business in the Persian Gulf. Ron frowned. Indians prefer to travel to Europe and the United States. To be honest, the Persian Gulf is not very attractive. Ron, your thoughts cannot be limited to tourism itself. I just said that tourism is only a part of currency trading, and currency trading is the focus. Foreign exchange black market. Ron finally understood. Yes, there are millions of Indians working in Saudi Arabia, Dubai, Abu Dhabi, Muscat, Bahrain, Kuwait and other Persian Gulf regions. If they want to go abroad, they can't do without the operation of travel agencies. These Indian workers sign contracts every 3, 6, or 12 months. They work as maids, cleaners, and laborers in wealthy countries in the Persian Gulf, and they usually receive foreign currency wages. Ron thought of Farouk, the eldest son of the slum boss Taj Ali. He worked in Kuwait and shared his work experience abroad with people around him every time he came back. After Indian workers get foreign currency, the first thing they do is to exchange it for rupees. In the past, they would go to my place to exchange money after returning, so that they could earn a little more rupees by taking advantage of the black market exchange rate, but that's too much trouble. A waiter came over, holding a carved glass bowl full of mango, papaya and watermelon slices. Johnny stood up to greet him and didn't let him get close. There are too many scattered people, and everyone is bargaining. Everyone has a different price bottom line in their hearts. It's too much trouble. Hadahan pinched a piece of watermelon and stuffed it into his mouth. So? I didn't expect the travel agency to play any role in this. Ron took a piece of papaya, and the fruit melted in his mouth, and the fruity fragrance filled the surroundings. The Arab employers and I are going to skip the labor link. They come to me to exchange rupees, and then pay the workers directly with rupees as remuneration. This link requires a transit station, and your travel agency is a great choice. Ron has automatically completed this transaction chain in his mind. The Arab employers exchanged rupees from Hadahan at a slightly more favorable exchange rate. This way, there will be extra rupees in hand, and after paying the wages, there will be a net profit. For many Persian Gulf employers, the temptation of this kind of financial crime is irresistible. There is also a lot of undeclared and untaxed money hidden under their luxurious beds, which is foreign currency for Kadhan. Another black market trading chain came into being. When Indian expatriates return home, someone will help them convert their wages into rupees. These workers are happy to do so because they can get rupees at a more attractive rate than the official exchange rate, and they don't have to deal with savvy black market dealers in person. Arab bosses are also very happy. As mentioned above, they can make an extra profit from the workers' wages. Black market dealers are also happy because a large amount of US dollars, marks, Saudi riyals, and UAE dirhams continue to flow into the river of demand created by Indian businessmen. Only the Indian government is excluded, and none of the millions involved in this trade are ashamed of it. Now Iran will become a link in it. His travel agency is responsible for providing rupees to Arab employers and collecting excess foreign currency from workers. Only travel agencies can do this. It is a must-go place for workers to go abroad and return home. No one will slip through the net. Your travel agency will have the qualifications to apply for visas. I will help you with this. Every worker who goes abroad or returns home through your travel agency will also pay a service fee of 2,000 rupees. Kadhan's warm palm was still on Ron's arm. He was asking for a price. The land was not enough to repay the huge profits that such a cross-border transaction could bring. Millions of Indians go out to work every year. Kadhan can't take all the customers, and Ron can't receive so many people every year. But a few thousand or tens of thousands of people is not difficult. That's enough. This is true for both Kadhan and Ron. Kadhan is responsible for taking the black market profits brought by the wages of tens of thousands of people for 3 months, 6 months, and 1 year, and Ron collects the service fees paid by tens of thousands of people every time they go abroad and return home. Well, Ron just roughly calculated it and was shocked by the huge profit. His current company's annual profit is at most more than 10 million rupees, which includes all the black and white profits including commissions, black market, selling dirty money, and providing special services. But Kadhan opened a new door for him. The travel agency business could easily increase the company's profits by 4 or 5 times. He was excited, thrilled, and terrified at the same time. So this travel agency is a special route for the Persian Gulf, you can say that. Kadhan nodded. I have a question, why don't you do this business yourself? Have you ever seen any gangster in Mumbai open a company by himself? Kadhan asked back. No, but we have a tacit understanding with the police and government officials. Black is black, white is white, and black and white can cooperate, but it must be within certain limits. If the black has both violence and wealth, the destructive power will be catastrophic. Order is the basis for the survival of the white, and it does not allow this to happen. How does the travel agency hand over rupees to Arab employers, and how does it collect foreign currency from workers? Ram had one last question. My man will be personally responsible at that time, and he will not be on duty in your travel agency. Okay, the last bit of doubt was dispelled, and Ron agreed happily. He didn't want to get involved in the specific transactions, and Hardhan might not trust him to be responsible for such a huge flow of money. This is good. He is white and Hardhan is black. Limited cooperation is good for both of them. That piece of land. Ron slowly picked up another piece of sugar. In a week, you will get what you want. Hardhan asked the waiter to pour Ron a new cup of black tea. Chapter 92 Treasure Slums. The travel agency is still in the planning stage. Many procedures and visa and passport qualifications require CAD-CON to negotiate. Although the Indian government relaxed investment restrictions in most areas last year, the licensing system still exists in some sensitive industries. Gangsters like CAD-CON can't get licenses, but Ron can. This is an opportunity for him. He can use CAD-CON's connections to get in touch with officials in public institutions. He is gradually enriching his network of relationships, from the police, customs, airlines, banks, to public institutions responsible for people's livelihood. When your business is big enough, you must deal with them and you will definitely contact them. There is no shortcut. This is India, a country where everyone from the people to the government has a clear understanding of corruption. While waiting for CAD-CON and Lady Elizabeth to reach an agreement, Ron decided to go see Anand first. He had rested for 2 days and was generally fine. It happened that today was Thursday, and Ron was going to the slums anyway, so he went along. Good morning, Ron Baba. Anand squeezed his big and small eyes that were still swollen and greeted him happily. You have to apply hot water to your eyes, which will make your ugly face look better, Ron joked with him. Yar, that's right. Anand's wife Frida laughed shrilly. His nostrils are also different in size. He snores so loudly at night, as if a bull is sleeping next to me. Old Sarab has a great treatment for snoring, Vinod said with his arms crossed. She will take a very sharp bamboo, about the length of my finger, and stick it into your nose. Then you will stop snoring, once and for all, and it will never come back. This method doesn't sound very friendly, Ron shrugged with a strange expression. He didn't need to guess that this was a folk remedy here in India. He didn't know if it worked, but it sounded scary enough. There were always incredible things happening on this magical land. The few of them talked and laughed and soon came to a small house prepared for him in advance, and then Ron was shocked by the scene there. There was a long line of people squatting on the ground at the door of the hut. There were at least 30 people in a long line, and the line stretched all the way to the first turn. What happened? It was not the first time Ron came here for treatment, but usually there were at most 20 people, and it was far from the end of the line like today. Fire. Anand's expression was a little sad. It happened yesterday, Vinod added. Fortunately the fire was put out in time, but a baby still died. The smoke was too heavy, and when he was found, his mouth and nostrils were blocked. There was no hope. Frida's eyes were red. The most feared thing in the slum is fire. There is no water supply system here, and the rainy season has passed. Reed mats, coconut ropes, plastic sheets, wooden boards, bamboo poles, once these things are ignited, they will get out of control. Anand said that the place where the fire broke out yesterday was downwind and close to the edge of the slums, which was a blessing. But the fire still destroyed dozens of huts. They only controlled the fire after they tore down all the huts near the fire zone. With so many people injured, why didn't you call the police or send them to the hospital? You should have informed me earlier if you had no other choice. Ron couldn't understand it all that they could still talk and laugh with so many injured people. It's no use, Ron, this is a slum. Anand smiled a little sadly. The government has always wanted to demolish this place, the police won't care, and the hospital can't get a seat. We have always come this way, Yar. The loss this time is small. Look, everyone is not that sad. Vinod touched his shoulder. The patients waiting here smiled when they saw Ron coming. They greeted him with a smile, just like before. Doctor, doctor, the crowd whispered, with the joy of being saved on their faces. Ron was in a complicated mood, and he forced a smile to greet them. Just yesterday he and Khan were sitting in a high-end private club discussing big business, where there were Bollywood stars, political celebrities, and Mumbai's most famous blind singers. "Let's go." Anand pulled Ron's shoulder forward. "By the way, do you want to go to the toilet first? It's morning now and you just got up." "What?" Ron was a little confused. "Going to the toilet means going to the toilet. Let me teach you how we go to the toilet on the long concrete breakwater and into the sea. Every morning, young men and boys go there to go to the toilet. Go to the toilet, you know? Just squat down with your butt facing the sea. Then take a shower, clean up, and have a happy breakfast. Then you can easily treat your patients. Everything is done." "No, I've already gone to the toilet." "Let's see the patients first. The patients are important." Ron stopped him. It was a bit difficult to do to pile up in the sea. They walked along the line to the other end. The crowd was old and young, men and women. There were cuts, bruises, and swelling on their faces, and their hands were burned, blistered, and bleeding. Some people had their arms in slings, and some had their legs in splints. It was obvious that emergency treatment had been done. Ron guessed that it was done by Rahad and Sam. The two young men had been learning from him for some time. Every Thursday when he came here, they would help with the chores. Ron would also teach them the names of various medicines, the main symptoms they should deal with, and the dosages. These basic knowledge. It was not to be called proficient, but it was enough for the slums. Rahad and Sam would replace him and practice medicine in the slums in the future. Entering the consultation room, Ron glanced into the distance. The line of people was longer than he had imagined. It stretched to the next alley, and stretched to farther and farther places. "We are busy, and they are all waiting," he sighed. "It's okay, let them wait." Ron, Anand shook his head, not thinking it was a big deal. "They have been waiting for more than an hour. If you weren't there, they would have waited again, but it was all in vain. Waiting in vain is more heartbreaking, isn't it? Now these people are not waiting in vain, they are waiting for you. You are a real thing, Ron sir." "Okay, but we have to get busy." Ron put down the first aid kit and began to prepare things without stopping. The two boys, Rahad and Sam, had already prepared bandages, stitches, tweezers, and syringes for him. They looked at Ron quietly and admiringly. Not only them, but also the children outside. Their eyes were like seeing a hero in a Bollywood movie. It is true that Ron had received formal first aid training in his previous life, covering cuts, burns, sprains, fractures, as well as various diagnostic methods and emergency treatment measures. Later, he learned cardiopulmonary resuscitation and pulled several hidden gentlemen out of the gates of hell in Mumbai. But he was not a doctor after all. At best he was a barefoot doctor in the slums. But the people here trust him, completely and unconditionally. In order to repay this trust, Ron devotes himself to saving lives. The patients report their names one by one, smiling. Ron and his two assistants do their best to treat their wounds one by one. They are busy with this task for the whole morning. During this time, someone brought a tin box with various foods in it, which was covered with a lid to prevent rats from stealing. Someone brought fruits, fresh and without any scratches on the surface. When the queue of people gradually dispersed, Taj Ali came with his men. Seeing him, Ron thought of what he talked about with Khan yesterday. Maybe his future travel agency will need the help of Taj Ali. There are more than 20,000 people in this slum, and Taj Ali also knows the bosses of several surrounding slums, where there are tens of thousands of people. With so many laborers, a large part of them want to go to the Persian Gulf to work, just like his eldest son Farooq. The salary there is very high, several times that in India, and most men in the slums are envious. Now he has this way to send people abroad, and the people in the slums happen to trust him very much. Look, what a good source of customers. There is no reason for him not to do this business. Ron, maybe you can use this. Taj Ali asked someone to hand over a cloth bag. Opening the cloth bag, Ron saw a pile of injections and plastic bottles, which contained morphine hydrochloride injection, penicillin, and antibiotics for treating staphylococcal and streptococcal infections. They were all new and had labels on them. Ron was a little amazed. Many of the drugs in them were very difficult to get and could not be bought in pharmacies outside. "Where did you get these things?" He put the things away. "This thing is very valuable. Drug black market. If you are interested, I will ask someone to take you there later." Taj Ali was very satisfied with Ron's performance. Drug black market? This seems to be a different place from the drug street he went to last time. Ron suddenly thought of Luca, who had disappeared for nearly 2 months. He must be very interested in the drug black market. Speaking of which, the slums are really a treasure. They are good at providing labor, smuggling, and black market. Chapter 93 Endless Greed. Luca's journey was not easy. From Mumbai to Brazil, he had to cross the Indian Ocean, go around the Cape of Good Hope, and finally cross the Atlantic Ocean to stop at the port of Rio de Janeiro. It took more than a month to reach Brazil after stopping along the way. There was no way. That's how it is when traveling by water. You have to stop at the shore frequently to replenish supplies. But it was all worth it. The hundreds of kilograms of goods Luca carried went around half of the world, and the final freight was only about $2,000. Water transportation is slow, but cheap. His friends often travel around the world with Brazilian specialties, and it was easy for him to carry less than a container of things. As soon as the cargo ship docked at the dock, Luca's brother Ronaldo directed people to start unloading. He received a call from his brother 2 days ago. "Bro, did this trip go well?" "It was just like a trip. You would never guess what I saw in India. That damn place is a well-deserved black market paradise." The two brothers hugged each other warmly, and their relatives and friends around them were all beaming. Everyone knows that they are destined to make a fortune the moment the drugs arrive. Brazil has a population of 160 million, but there is not a single powerful pharmaceutical company. The entire country's drugs are basically imported, especially some in-demand drugs, which are expensive and most people cannot afford. In fact, Brazil and India are very similar. They are both located in low-latitude areas with hot and humid climates. Both countries are melting pots of races, with many languages and dark skin. They are both underdeveloped and have large populations. From a topographical point of view, there are large plateaus in the south and large plains in the north, such as the Deccan Plateau and the Brazilian Plateau. Even the shape of the land of the two countries is an inverted triangle. However, the rampant gangs in Brazil are much more serious than those in India. In some cities, gangs directly replace the government to manage people's livelihood. Obviously, this environment is not conducive to the development of economy and scientific research. Look, India has generic drugs, but Brazil does not. But Luca and his friends don't care about these. They are happy to see it happen. India's generic drugs have become a shortcut for them to make money. "Are the types of this batch of goods complete?" Ronaldo asked, his eyes occasionally scanning the temporarily assembled cartons. "All the ones on the list. The pharmaceutical factories are a little different, but the effects are the same." "Very good. I have contacted some customers. They are willing to pay a high price for all." "All?" Luca was surprised. "All." In addition to Rio de Janeiro, there are other big cities in Brazil, and even Argentines have come. Ronaldo's expression was quite proud. He found another profitable business. They used to sell hemp, but because of gang conflicts, they were kicked out. What else can gang members in Brazil do if they don't sell hemp? He asked his younger brother Luca to go to India to purchase goods, but he accidentally brought back the first batch of drugs. Pandora's box was opened, and the two brothers found that drug smuggling was also profitable. Their appetite became bigger, so they directly saved nearly $100,000 to purchase goods. It happened that the word of mouth of the first batch of drugs began to spread, and many people took the initiative to come to the door. Businessmen are shrewd, they have a keen sense of smell, and they realize the profit in it after a little inquiry. "Look, Luca's goods have just landed, and they have almost been divided up. In a week at most, we can get back 3 to 4 times the profit. Then we can invest this money again and make more money." Ronaldo dragged Luca to the bar by the dock. "At least let me take a break. I just came back from the other side of the earth," Luca complained. "I know, but that's 3 or 4 times the profit. We can collect $300,000 this time. Think about how much we can get if we come back again." Ronaldo's tone was extremely bewitching. "Okay, 2 weeks. I will fly back to India in 2 weeks." Luca raised his hands in surrender. "Great, my dear brother." Ronaldo hugged his shoulders intimately. "The honor of the family is concentrated in you. Before you find a girl to relax, I will introduce someone to you first." "Who?" Luca was not interested. He was only interested in girls now. The enthusiasm of Brazilian girls was the best soothing agent. "Come, let's talk inside." Ronaldo took Luca into the bar. They saw a foreigner in the corner of the booth. He had blonde hair, which was obviously not the hair color of Brazilians. "Let me introduce you. This is Jerry from Merck. This is my brother Luca. He has a lot of connections in India. Hello." The two shook hands, then sat down and began to enjoy the beer in front of them. Brazilians are enthusiastic and direct. Jerry knows this well. If you want to gain favor, you should drink a glass first. Sure enough, after drinking the good beer, Luca's eyes became much friendlier. Merck seems to be a pharmaceutical company. Since he got involved in this business, Luca has also done some homework. "Yes, I am investigating the market here in Latin America," Jerry admitted generously. "American company?" Luca looked at his brother in confusion, as if asking, "Why did you bring a competitor home?" Jerry wants to talk to us about another business. Ronaldo motioned him to stay calm. "Don't worry, Luca, we are not in competition, and our customers are not the same group." Jerry laughed. Luca was stunned, and then laughed too. "It's actually true to say that Merck's customers are all rich people in Brazil, and they will not try generic drugs. Branded drugs are 10 or 20 times more expensive, so what? In short, in their eyes, India represents shoddy products." "Okay, Jerry from the Lighthouse, what business do you want to discuss with me? I heard that you have a lot of connections in India and can get scarce resources that others can't get." "What do you mean, trials?" Jerry looked around and lowered his voice. "Clinical trials." Luca raised his eyebrows. "Do you want to find someone to test the drug? You know, developing any new drug requires a lot of clinical trials. This is very troublesome in the United States, but it's different in India, where there are a lot of pharmaceutical companies. They are doing the same thing. They have rich human resources, and various processes are quite mature. If an old pharmaceutical company like Merck wants to develop a new drug, the R&D cost may be as high as more than $1 billion, and the cycle is also measured in years. Among them, clinical trials are an important part of new drug development, which is not only costly, but also very long. According to U.S. law, even if the volunteers are already informed, pharmaceutical companies must prepare various protection measures. This includes emergency treatment, follow-up convalescence, and compensation. There is no doubt that recruiting a drug trial volunteer often costs pharmaceutical companies tens of thousands of dollars. Western established companies have been looking for a breakthrough. They hope to save costs and shorten the clinical trial cycle. India has long been in their sights, but India has been closed to the outside world, and Western companies cannot enter. In addition, since the 1970s, there have been constant patent disputes, and the Indian government has a very bad impression of Western pharmaceutical companies. Last year, it was opened up, and Merck also tried to contact them, but the Indian government was not very interested at all. If you are allowed in, what will happen to the generic drug companies such as Ranbaxy and Cipla, which are their own children? Just when Merck was at a loss, Jerry, who was in charge of the Latin American market, accidentally heard about Luca. "As long as you can find volunteers, each one will be paid $5,000. $5,000, Luca wanted to refuse directly, but the number made him silent. "That's right, $5,000. We only want people, and we don't care about other things. We don't want any other troubles to come to us." Luca understood what Jerry meant. Merck would not recognize any hidden dangers or compensation. "Luca, I think this is worth considering," Ronaldo hinted to his brother. "India has a larger population than Brazil. Brazilian lives are worthless, so Indian lives are even less valuable. I'm not sure." Luca was a little entangled. "I have to ask. In addition, how can Merck conduct experiments legally in India? We will donate a laboratory with advanced instruments and equipment, which the Indian government has long desired." Jerry was confident about this. Merck can choose not to enter the Indian market, and it cannot compete with local generic drug companies, but pure academic institutions are still possible. The Indian government likes to get things for free, so of course it will not refuse such free things. In fact, Merck had previously approached a local consulting company in Mumbai, and they tentatively put forward their own requirements. But when the other party heard that it was for an American company or a pharmaceutical company, they immediately shook their heads and refused. No matter how much money they gave, it would be useless. They thought this would threaten the status of Indian generic drugs, which was incredible, but that was the fact. The serious corruption problem in this country has reached an absurd level, and senior military officials dared to sell weapons to hostile organizations. But there are also some people who can refuse the benefits that are within their reach without hesitation for the sake of their own companies. No one can understand the third brother's train of thought, which has nothing to do with logic. In the end, there was no choice. After several attempts, Merck had to give up the original idea. But now Jerry has found another roundabout route, and he decided to give it a try. If it works, Merck can immediately start the establishment of the Indian experiment. I will return to India in half a month. Wait for my news. Luca was defeated. $5,000 is hard to refuse, which is equivalent to the profit of smuggling drugs. P.S. All 20 chapters have been sent. Take a nap first, and talk about it tomorrow. Big guys, thank you for subscribing. Chapter 94 All depends on acting. Ron was unaware of the conversation that took place in Brazil. At that time, Mumbai could not provide long-distance telephone service. It was too far away, with the Indian Ocean and the Atlantic Ocean in between. After visiting the slums, Ron put his energy into his travel information company. Since entering the golden period of tourism in September, the company's team has become larger and larger. Including errand runners and these flexible employment workers who solicit customers, a total of more than 100 people rely on his business for a living. Compared with the bare commander at the beginning of the year, this progress can be called a leap forward. Around the tourism business, Ron has also discovered a variety of ways to make money. Service commission, foreign exchange, black market, Bollywood extras, special transactions, travel agencies. Each one has a lot of tricks, far beyond the imagination of outsiders. Tisk, who would have thought that a travel company would have so many ways to make money? After doing this business, I realized that there is a lot of room for tourism. Among the 5 ways to make money, Ron has only opened up the first 4 for the time being. The commission is 500,000 rupees per month, the black market income is 700,000, the Bollywood extras are 300,000, and the special transactions are 150,000, 1.65 million rupees per month. This is probably Ron's monthly profit during the peak tourist season. Of course, this is the gross profit, and the various costs such as rent, labor, bribes, etc. must be deducted. In the end, the net profit that really goes into the pocket is about 1.2 million rupees. Among all the expenses, bribes and labor are the biggest ones, and these two cannot be saved at all. Looking at the full page of planning content, Ron couldn't help but imagine the future business of the travel agency. I don't know how the talks with Kadhan went. It has been 5 days since the last meeting. Ron, business is here. Anand's excited footsteps came from outside. Are there any tour groups coming to the door? Oh, no, there are no tour groups. But someone wants to do business in gems and books. Ron's eyes lit up and he got up from the chair. Among the 5 ways to make money, there are not many that can impress him now. Tour groups are one, which often means a profit of hundreds of thousands of rupees. Since the last time Smith's student, he has hardly taken on such big business. This is more difficult to do, and he can't advertise abroad. Another kind of business that interests him is special business, such as gems and books. The so-called books are actually passports, which is a special name for the black market. How much does he want? Did you tell him that the more he buys, the better the price will be? Ron has such resources. Of course, I told him a price that is as cheap as it can be. The guy prepared a big backpack. What about the books? Which books does he want? Ron's eyes are brighter than gems. The guy is very unlucky. The passport he got last time was a wanted criminal, and he almost got exposed in front of the police. This time he wants 2, one Sri Lankan and one French. Great. We take this business, and I will be responsible for it personally. Ron's company has become well known in Mumbai. He can not only provide high-quality services, but also has many connections. From women, gold, jewelry, to passports that are not allowed to be seen in public, he can help you get them. With this outstanding reputation, many people will take the initiative to find him. That afternoon, Ron took the Puerto Rican to find Hila. As early as 2 months ago, they had already started to cooperate in the passport business. Hila knew embassy officials from several countries and also knew the gangsters in charge of this business. As long as she made a move, she could get a passport from any country. By the way, Hila was also a jewelry expert. She specialized in gems and jewelry, and many foreign buyers looked for jewelry through her. This was also what Hila told him personally when they were drinking in Leopold Bar. Ron had even seen her collection, which was dazzling. This Puerto Rican, Jimmy. He was a gem smuggler. He bought gems at low prices from India and Sri Lanka, and then shipped them back to North America and Europe to sell them to luxury goods processors at high prices. This route was not easy to run, and he had to go through many different countries. In order to deal with their customs, passports were a must, and at least 2 or more. God knows where he got the passport last time, and he almost got caught. Fortunately, this is India, and the police will let you go if you bribe them a little. Jimmy still had to go to Sri Lanka, and before entering the country, he had to settle the passport issue. After asking someone, the other party introduced him to Ron. Everything will be settled, remember to follow my instructions later, Ron reminded him before meeting Hila and the others. No problem, I know all the rules, Jimmy promised solemnly. The meeting place was the tea room downstairs in Hila's apartment, and she was responsible for bridging the two parties. When Ron and the others arrived, the jeweler Hila had arranged had not arrived yet, so they first talked about the passport business. Hila was directly responsible for this transaction. She was an old hand, and in just a few words, Jimmy accepted her offer. The price of each passport is different. For example, to go to Sri Lanka, which is adjacent to India, you can get it for $3,000. This is a clean passport. The original owner is neither dead nor a wanted criminal, and there is not even a stain on his record. With it, you can not only pass through the international airport without any obstacles, but also settle in Sri Lanka. This type of passport has the highest price, and $3,000 is already a low price. Of course, there are cheaper ones, such as the one with a criminal record on Jimmy's body, which costs between $100 and $1,000 on the black market. For the same clean passport, Sri Lanka needs $3,000, while France needs $10,000. After all, they are developed countries, and European and American passports are always in high demand. This is not the first time Jimmy has done this kind of business, and he accepted Hila's offer. As the two shook hands and made the deal, Ron happily gave Hila an appreciative look. For $13,000, he can probably get a 10-point commission, which is not a small amount. Especially for US dollar transactions, he can make a little more by using the black market exchange rate. After the two parties agreed on the delivery time, the gem merchant in the white hat also hurried over with a cane. From his attire, it is easy to tell that he is a Muslim. This is not surprising. Hyderabad is rich in gems, and that city is a famous Muslim gathering area. In India, if you want to distinguish whether a city has more Hindus or Muslims, it is very simple. Just look at the name. Names with Ba indicate that they are mainly Muslims, such as Hyderabad and Ahmedabad. Most people with the word Pu in their names believe in Hinduism, such as Jaipur and Kanpur. Ron and Hila were not surprised by this, and Jimmy looked over here. Seeing that he did not express anything, they began to negotiate with the gem merchant without any worries. The two of them were not directly involved in this transaction, they were just middlemen, and the final reward came from the commission of the transaction amount. When it came to his professional field, Jimmy showed his shrewd side. He shouted loudly and bargained fiercely with the gem merchant, but he did not say the psychological price. Until the other party was about to lose patience, he grabbed a corner of the gem merchant's bag, raised the corresponding finger number under the cover of the cloth, and hinted at the price he wanted. Are you crazy? Do I still want to do business? The gem merchant was not willing to be outdone. He slammed the door and left in extreme dissatisfaction, shouting and cursing all the way. Jimmy subconsciously wanted to chase him out, but Ron stopped him. Don't worry, he will come back. What? Jimmy stared at him in confusion. In fact, he had just made a few blind bargains when he made the offer. In business, it is impossible not to bargain. But the jewel merchant suddenly left without saying goodbye before they had even fought for 2 rounds, which caught him off guard. In business in India, you can't make a deal without a few rounds of confrontation. Ron winked at him and pointed to the corner. Jimmy saw a beautiful cane there, which was left by the jewel merchant. He seemed to understand something, while Hila watched all this with a smile. Neither explained nor was he in a hurry. About 5 minutes later, the jewel merchant who had just left angrily suddenly came back. I forgot my cane here. He looked at Ron and then at Hila. Come on, I think we can talk more. Ron quickly walked up to him, grabbed his arm, and then winked at Jimmy. Jimmy suddenly realized that it was time to act according to the glare. So he took a step back and made a new offer based on what he had just done. Sure enough, this time the jeweler made 2 simple gestures and showed an interested expression. Come on, shake hands and make a deal. Ron stepped in again. The smoke in the private room was immediately cleared, and the whole room was full of joy. Everyone's performance was exaggerated, but the deal was done. The next thing to do was to inspect the goods. The two of them had a clear division of labor and won the jewelry deal worth $200,000. They each had a commission, and Ron got about 3 points of commission in total, and he would get the money after the deal was completed. Look, this special business is very profitable. In just half an afternoon, he will have an income of $7,300, a total of 300,000 rupees. Of course, good things don't happen every day. Occasionally, a deal is worth a month's income in Bollywood. After saying goodbye to Hila, Ron saw Johnny when he returned to the fortress area. He was very happy, and he knew that good things were about to come in pairs. Chapter 95 Mountain Rain. Johnny rode a motorcycle over. It was an Enfield Bullet-style single-cylinder, 4-stroke large displacement motorcycle. This thing is the supreme existence in the hearts of almost every boy in Mumbai. It is not only handsome, but also very practical. On the crowded and mazy streets, it can easily weave in and out of the crowd, or it can run wildly on the deserted seaside avenue at midnight. Johnny twisted the throttle proudly, and the roar of the engine attracted Ron's admiring eyes as expected. It's beautiful, and not so hungry. Do you want to get one? I know someone in the car dealership, and I guarantee you a good price. Great. Ron touched the wild-looking frame in admiration, but this car has a temper. It's not suitable for me. Every man yearns for the speed of racing. The kind of pleasure of riding the wind is a rare pleasure in the world. But this is usually mixed with the experience of being on the verge of death, and he is not so radical. You missed the best weapon to attract girls. Johnny regretted his decision. Tell me, do you have good news for me? Ron turned his attention away from the motorcycle. Catterbay said that Lady Elizabeth agreed. I don't mean to ask, but I'm curious about what they talked about. Transactions involving big shots. Catterbay will help Lady Elizabeth introduce guests. Ron understood that Lady Elizabeth, who had just arrived in Mumbai, was in urgent need of integrating here, and Kadirhan could open the door for her. This was probably a circle of gangsters, congressmen, and wealthy people. Ron was not qualified yet. He didn't even know what Lady Elizabeth looked like. He was not blinded by anger, nor did he foolishly shout for revenge, which was purely to make himself unhappy. He longed for power, more wealth, and also longed to seize every opportunity, such as the one in front of him. What do I need to do next? Ron asked. Nothing. No one will interfere with your business. The owner of the textile factory will contact you soon. Johnny patted his shoulder. What about the travel agency? Catterbay will meet with an official next week, and you will go together then. Okay. Ron nodded in agreement. In just a few words, he already understood the unspoken rules of the deal. The textile factory is one business, and the travel agency is another. Ron wanted the land, and the price was that he helped Cad Khan to start the travel agency business. Cad Khan used his personal connections in exchange for Lady Elizabeth's abandonment of interfering in the textile factory. Everyone got what they needed, and everyone had what they wanted. Very good. Although it took a long detour and took some risks, it also saved a lot of trouble. In the future, no gangsters would harass him at the textile factory, because Cad Khan used his great reputation to endorse this deal. How are you and Parvati? After the key things were done, Ron relaxed and leaned against the street lamp to chat with him. Very good. The three of us often date together. 3. Ron's brain was a little down. Why 3? Because there are 3 people. 3 people dating together. Yes, you dated 2 girls at the same time. Ron was surprised. It turned out that besides him, there were others who could get 2 girls at the same time. No, Ron. Every time we go on a date, Parvati always brings her mother. That's Kumar's wife, Aunt Tita. She sits between us, so there are 3 of us on a date. Sounds like. Ron scratched his head. Seems interesting. Yes, it's interesting. Of course it's interesting. Too interesting. When I stuff some food and drinks into Aunt Tita's mouth, I can look at Parvati, and she can look at me. This is our strategy. Aunt Tita has a big appetite, and she will eat non-stop during a 3-hour movie. So I have to keep sending food so that I can stare at Parvati and smile at her. Thank God, a movie can't feed Aunt Tita at all. Even old Kumar can't feed Aunt Tita. Ron nodded with deep feeling, and Johnny laughed. Wait, there seem to be a lot of people there. Ron pointed to the distance. A group of people, hundreds of people, thousands of people, went around the corner and walked onto the wide seaside avenue. They crossed the road and walked towards Ron and the others. Oh my God. I hope it's not a riot. Johnny, who was as strong as an ox, couldn't help but gasp when he saw the crowd. Those people were extremely angry. Men and women shouted slogans excitedly and waved their fists at the same time. Their necks and shoulders were stiff with anger, and their stubborn faces were full of pain and anger. They repeatedly shouted the name of Lord Rama, shouting for revenge and teaching Muslims a lesson. When the rolling crowd approached Ron and Johnny, they were very nervous. When someone saw the holy thread on Ron's wrist, they patted his shoulder and encouraged him to join the crowd of demonstrators. Most people had bloodshot eyes and looked around the streets for targets. They were looking for those wearing white hats and veils, and their eyes were full of hatred and coldness. Ron had no doubt that if he and Johnny were Muslims, they would be torn to pieces by the angry crowd at this time. Mumbai is going to be in chaos, Johnny sighed worriedly. What happened? Ron didn't pay much attention to sectarian information. The news he often read was from the economic section. The Babri Masjid in Uttar Pradesh has been destroyed. Hindus and Muslims have started a war there. Soon, this war will spread across the country, Johnny was very sure. As a native Indian, he knew too well the deep hatred between the two factions. As long as there is a fuse, coupled with the instigation of radical elements, the conflict will inevitably break out. Don't go out recently. I want to find Parvati. Johnny twisted the accelerator hard, quickly past the surging crowd, and disappeared at the end of the road. Shit. Ron hated this kind of riots, because it meant that Mumbai's tourism business would be completely shut down. It was worse than the rainy season, because riots meant death and destruction, and no foreigner was willing to take the risk to come to Mumbai at this time. He had to take care of Nia not to go out recently, as well as Mary and Lena. Oh, I have to go to Kavaya's place too. But before that, he wanted to get the land first. In order to avoid more trouble, he must find Sharma as soon as possible. When he saw Sharma again, Ron was surprised. His ears were wrapped in gauze, and there were obvious bruises on his eyes and nose. His originally pot-bellied figure had also lost a lot of weight. Dude, you don't look good. It's okay, it's all over. Sharma waved his hand easily, as if he had unloaded a heavy burden. The place where they met was still the residential house last time. This time, Sharma did not hide anything, but frankly opened the door and welcomed Ron and the others in. However, when he saw the tall Vino and the several sturdy people following behind Ron, he still shuddered subconsciously. Don't get me wrong, they are just worried about me. I know, it's a mess outside. Sharma shook his head. After suffering a loss once, Ron certainly would not act alone now. Especially at the moment when the atmosphere between India and Muslims is becoming more and more tense, it is definitely better to be careful. In addition to these bodyguards, Ron also brought a lawyer and the company's accountant Harris, who will be used in the next process. So have you solved all the problems on your side? Ron gave him a suggestive look. Of course, without those bastards blocking me, I can find many connections. Then let's get started. Ron didn't waste any words and asked the lawyer and Harris to start auditing the materials on the table. Sharma soon received a call from Ron after being released by Mrs. Elizabeth's men. The rest of the matter was simple. Since he had the guarantee of the gangster boss, Sharma began to use his own methods without scruples. He has been operating in Mumbai for many years and is familiar with all kinds of operations. Soon the bank signed the mortgage contract cancellation agreement. Today Ron came here to complete the last step of the transaction, signing the sales contract. After receiving the signal from the lawyer and Harris, Ron finally smiled. He happily picked up the contract and signed his name. Sharma was more impatient than him. This is US dollars, the same as we agreed last time. At Ron's signal, Vino put a black briefcase on the table. Happy cooperation, Baba. Sharma was dazzled by the green banknotes. Goodbye. And I wish you have 10 daughters, and each of them will have a good ending. Ron left the most polite and vicious curse in the Indian business world, and insulted Sharma. Unless you are very wealthy, 10 daughters will make you bankrupt. Vino and the others laughed, but Sharma was cursing in the house. This guy is a black-hearted capitalist, even more black than Ron. On the way back, Ron clearly felt that the streets of Mumbai were much more bleak. The hawkers who usually hawked along the street and the beggars who swarmed in were now gone. Perhaps these poor people struggling at the bottom can more keenly feel the atmosphere of impending storm. Boom! There was a muffled sound of collapse in the distance, and several people in the car subconsciously looked over. The crowds were running, shouting, and chasing. Winter is coming in Mumbai. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 96. The big one is coming. It was January, the beginning of a new year. The streets of Mumbai were not as lively as the New Year's Day holiday, and the atmosphere was getting more and more tense. The crowds of protesters were like waves, and every time one wave hit, another wave surged behind. The vendors no longer frequently went to the streets, and some owners of the stalls of the Mughals simply closed their doors. They were experienced and knew that Mumbai was a powder keg at this time, and any insignificant conflict between the two sects could lead to riots. The tension in the air made foreigners dare not take to the streets. Ron's business was obviously in a trough, which was worse than the rainy season. The huge team of nearly 200 people was now half gone. Some of them may have joined the crowd of protesters, and some may have hidden at home. Ron didn't care, but he also cared. It was best not to get involved in this mess, otherwise there would be endless trouble. The Grand District slum, where Anand and his friends lived, even blocked the entrance and exit with wooden boards. The people under the rule of Tejali included Hindus and Mughals. In the past, everyone helped each other, but if there were riots outside, no one could guarantee what would happen. He didn't want the neighbors who used to be harmonious to fight each other, so sealing off the entire slum was the safest approach. Except for a few people like Anand and Vino, most residents no longer went out. This sudden confrontation disrupted all of Ron's plans. Not only was there no business to do, but even the newly purchased land had to be left idle. He had originally planned to have someone clean up the place, and then recruit a few people to work on the cheap electrical appliances, but now he couldn't find anyone at all. Ron, who had nothing to do, could only go to Leopold's bar to inquire about some information. By the way, Dee asked them to ask him for help with something. Mumbai is getting worse, Dee sighed with compassion. You're damn right, Viraj put down his glass heavily. Those bastards on the street are just taking advantage of the situation to cause trouble. I'm not talking about the people protesting outside. Mumbai as a whole is getting worse. Oh, man, what's your opinion? Viraj said sarcastically. He was in a bad mood recently and his equestrian performance business was affected. When I first came to Mumbai a few years ago, I opened the window of my apartment and saw parrots flying around outside. Now I see plastic bags flying like rain. If you dare not close the window when you go out, when you come back, the floor will be covered with black dust and various kinds of garbage that will open your eyes. Ice cream cone shells with syrup and cream left, milk packaging bags, plastic pot lids stained with betel nut juice, and even used and discarded baby diapers. Dhiren's face was full of pain. He counted on his fingers and listed the garbage he saw one by one. His fingers were very white, with long nails, and the dirt under the fingertips was obviously black. Speaking of which, he looked at Ron. You have to find me someone quickly. My apartment is about to become a cesspool. What? Ron looked away from the street outside. A plumber. I need a real plumber. The guy I hired originally had a mouthful of rotten teeth stained with betel nut juice. He was the worst and most despicable person I have ever seen in my life. I wanted to strangle him to death. Dhiren gnashed his teeth in hatred. He was fed up with that guy. The plumber's hobby was to stir up trouble between residents. He told Dhiren's upstairs and downstairs neighbors that Dhiren should pay to fix all the big and small plumbing problems, and then told Dhiren, you have to try to convince your neighbors to let them pay for it. He fanned the flames from both sides, and then eagerly expected Dhiren to fight with the upstairs and downstairs neighbors. And the work he was responsible for, the water heater, faucet, flush toilet, sewer, none of them worked. The ceiling was also leaking, and drops of brown liquid kept seeping out. Dhiren complained to the building's property management, but the owners' committee said that all the water pipes in the building did not meet the standards. They were not responsible for outsourcing the plumbers, and the interface of the sewage pipe was sealed in the wall. As a result, residents privately dismantled the pipes and changed the direction of the pipes at will, resulting in the pipes not running straight and unable to drain properly. The more it was difficult to drain properly, the more they had to find someone to repair it every now and then, and they privately modified and dismantled it at will. As a result, the repairs became more and more outrageous, and even the sewage pipe and the water pipe were connected together. Can you imagine? When I was brushing my teeth in the morning, the cup under the tap was filled with brown, smelly and suspicious liquid. Oh God, Viraj put down the yellow beer in his hand. You shouldn't say it now, Or at least wait until I finish this glass of beer before talking. I'm worried that you will spit it out." Dhiren shrugged, then turned to Ron. "How is it? I know you have a lot of capable people under you, and there is no problem in Mumbai that you can't solve. Because of the recent demonstrations, Dhiren couldn't even find a qualified plumber. They didn't know where they all ran away. Maybe they were in the crowd outside. It's okay to deal with it temporarily, but if you want to find the crux of the problem thoroughly, it's as difficult as getting Hindus and Mughals to shake hands and make peace. Ram can mobilize people from the slums anytime and anywhere. The people living there have a variety of occupations. The most common ones are cleaners, toilet repairmen, plumbers and other people who deal with dirt. They are exclusive occupations for Dalits. Having said that, tracing the direction of the sewer from the top floor to the first floor is like walking on a winding mountain road with many twists and turns and numerous forks. If Mumbai's apartment building is compared to a person, then he's already terminally ill, with severe blood clots, arteriosclerosis, and annoying psoriasis. It's okay as long as I can deal with it. I plan to move to another apartment in a while. By the way, Ron, you live in a good place. How much is the rent there? 12,000 rupees a month, and the toilet has never been blocked. Okay, just pretend I didn't ask. Dhiren felt that he was inflated. He actually asked about Ron's rent. What level is it? Isn't anyone discussing the next situation in Mumbai? Kavya, who had been whispering with Hila before, couldn't help but interrupt. Is there any need to discuss this? This city will not be at peace for the next few months, Viraj said firmly. I think so too. They will fight sooner or later. Everyone is full of anger and they need to vent, Kavya agreed. That's too bad, Dhiren said with a sad face. Yes, that's too bad. Ron was also a bit worried. His business would suffer a major loss. Suddenly, the noise outside attracted everyone's attention. People in the bar couldn't help but run out to watch the excitement, and Ron and his friends followed them out. On the street outside Leopold, two streams of people slowly merged at the intersection. People were crowded on trucks, some dressed as Hindu gods, and some dressed as saints. 3 people stood on the front of the truck, looking very majestic. They were surrounded by people of all ages, more than 50 people, and the one leading the way was wearing a red, white and blue British flag hat. It's Rafiq from the Shiva army, the bastard who closed the Mumbai tobacco den. Dhiren recognized the sturdy figure at a glance. It should be called the Shiv Sena now, Ron added. Shiv Sena? Viraj looked at the figure and was eager to try. Yar, they got money recently, and even have their own newspaper called The Confrontation. As a reporter, Kavya was more informed. The traffic and people slowly passed the Leopold bar. In front of them was the Kingshang Temple, and at the end of the road was the police station. When they approached the Kingshang Temple, the procession almost stopped. The drummer beat the drums frantically, and the crowd danced with him. Many of them were drunk before they came. There was a small group of women at the end of the procession, one of whom waved a huge orange Shiv Sena flag. The men were not picky about their partners. They twisted their hips and swung their heads, and all kinds of movements were unbearable to watch. Some children followed suit and began to move restlessly to the drums. Clouds of colored powder were thrown among the dancers. Then the firecrackers went off, boom, crack. The fireworks were lit, illuminating the entire Kingshang Temple red. The air was thick with sulfur, the stench of open sewage pipes, and the smell of sweat from the crowd. Rafiq waved a flag provocatively at the Kingshang Temple. Long live the great King Shivaji. Shivaji was the name of the founding monarch of the empire built by the Marathas, and also the origin of the name of the Shiva army. The crowd followed suit, waving orange flags like crazy, drawing arcs in the air along the tall flagpole. Long live Hinduism. Long live Shivaji. This is the slogan of the Shiva army. Some Mughals watched silently on the side, some of them holding stones in their hands, as if they were ready to throw them at the crowd. The people in the team were not to be outdone. Some weighed pork, aimed at the white hat on the roadside and prepared to throw it out. The atmosphere was tense, with drum beats, fireworks, and the bells of the Kingshang Temple minaret bursting out one after another. Seeing that a conflict was about to break out, a quick whistle suddenly sounded. At the police station at the end of the street, more than a dozen patrolmen in turbans came running. They were Sikhs, and they received a temporary order to stop the conflict. Those Hindu colleagues were left in the station by the director. If they came, it would only make things worse. Ron knew the leader, the deputy director Amor. Because of business, they had a close relationship. Amor directed his men to create a human wall between the movement and the parade, and blew a whistle to order Rafiq's team to leave. Rafiq did not resist, he stopped when he saw the good. The parade left the gate of King's Hang Temple and gradually went away. For them, this was already a victory. Run, hide quickly. Something bad happened in Jageshwari district, Mumbai will be in trouble, Amor hurriedly warned, and turned around to command the team with sweat on his forehead. What? Ron asked subconsciously. Don't go out. Don't open the door no matter who knocks. Amor led the team to the north. Boom. In the direction where these patrolmen went, there was a flash of fire in the sky. Shit. Guys, go home now. Quick. Lock the door and don't let anyone in. Ron cursed and immediately turned around to tell his friends to run away. His intuition told him that this time something big was really going to happen. Chapter 97, Crazy City. With a loud bang, the whole of Mumbai seemed to be split in two, and people began to fight. The parade that had just dispersed not far away gathered again under the waving of the Shiv Sena flag. Rafiq shouted loudly, and all kinds of inflammatory curses were heard. Someone handed him a microphone, and the curses echoed throughout the Kalaba district. Under his command, the crowd gradually became agitated. First, stones and pork flew everywhere, and then fists and feet began to fight, and the conflict inevitably broke out. Amil's whistle was completely useless, and his men did not dare to directly intervene in the irrational crowd. The turmoil slowly spread outward like a water wave, and more people were swept in. Ron had never seen such a scene. Men and women on the street picked up anything that could be used as a weapon and rushed towards the temple gate and the crowd of people. Wooden sticks, coconuts, milk teacups, flying cakes. The ordinary objects on the stalls were now all weapons. That Rafiq got a gas tank from somewhere. He walked past the crowd, turned the valve, lit a match, and then pushed the gas tank into the temple gate. Boom! A louder sound exploded in their ears, and Ron and the others subconsciously held their heads and lowered their bodies. Crash! The glass of Leopold's bar shattered. When they looked up again, the temple gate had disappeared, and one of the 4 minarets was missing. The crowd outside suddenly cheered, and Rafiq raised his fist like a victorious general. The Mughals who were hiding, their hateful eyes seemed to be choosing people to devour. God, is there a civil war in Mumbai? Dhiren's voice trembled slightly. Viraj was silent, Hila and Kavya were pale, and their carefully groomed hairstyles were disturbed by the shock wave of the explosion. It's time to leave. If we don't leave now, we might suffer too. Ron looked at the street with a look of pity. There was a Mughal woman being dragged into the crowd, her clothes were stripped off, and one man after another surrounded her. Ron, Kavya grabbed his arm tightly, shaking with strength. I'll take you home. Ron put his arm around her shoulders and patted her gently. Drive my motorcycle. Viraj threw a key over. What about you? Ron asked. I'll take Hila home. Viraj winked at him. Well, this guy is still thinking about picking up girls at this hour. Look, Dhiren's terrified cry attracted several people. At the collapsed temple gate, a man with a body on fire first climbed up, then fell down. He wanted to escape, but fell again, then climbed up and continued to run. Oil dripped from the man's body, and there were only 2 holes left in his eyes, and then the holes became bigger and bigger. He hit the stone wall, and the white bones were immediately exposed. More and more oil dripped from his body, dripping down like water, and the bones were exposed. After a few crooked steps, the figure fell down. This time he couldn't get up, and his arms were stretched out in the air in a weird posture. The squeaking sound of the oil was exactly the same as the puffing sound in the oil pan of the small vendor. Ron was horrified, Hila vomited directly, and Kavya's face was full of tears. Let's go. He grabbed Kavya's hand and rushed to Viraj's motorcycle without looking back. The people in the city have gone crazy. The porters and coolies who used to be honest now seem to have turned into demons. Mumbai, a crazy city. Starting the motorcycle, Ron took Kavya south along the seaside boulevard, preparing to take a detour to the fortress area. Don't go to crowded places at this time, and small streets and alleys are not the first choice. The wide seaside boulevard is more reassuring. The sea clouds burned on the sea like fire. Ron rushed into the tunnel of light against the sea breeze, and the sunset robe slipped off the shoulders of this city. Kavya hugged Ron's solid waist and back tightly with both hands. Her fingers unconsciously moved up and down, like the seawater constantly attacking, and the waves were surging. If it were usual, there would be a charming atmosphere, but now the two had no time to care about anything else. The scene in Leopold Bar washed over their minds again and again. Kavaya kept her eyes closed the whole time, her cheek pressed against Ron's back without moving. Slowly, the sea breeze brushing across her cheek became gentle. Kavaya opened her eyes and the motorcycle was slowing down. "What's wrong?" she asked. "Can you drive a motorcycle?" "What? I have to stop. If things go wrong later, you can just drive away on the motorcycle and don't worry about me." "Wait, what happened?" Ron didn't answer. He stopped the motorcycle, but the engine was still running. After handing the handlebars to Kavaya, Ron walked to the roadside not far away. There was a group of people surrounding another person, and they were pouring gasoline on the person in the middle, a lot of gasoline. The bicycle fell to the side of the road, and the freshly made bread in the basket was scattered all over the ground. "Please, let me go. I still have children, I still have children." "When you set fire to the Lotta Tube building, did you think about your children?" There were angry curses from the crowd. "Dharmendra," Ron shouted, "what are you doing?" The young man holding the gasoline barrel paused, turned around and saw Ron. He avoided his gaze unnaturally, and then became a little embarrassed. "He is a Moomin." Dharmendra pointed at the middle-aged man and shouted. "So what? Haven't you eaten the bread he made? You pass by his stall every day, have you forgotten? But they killed the Hindus, a whole family. Then go find the murderer." "What does this have to do with Uncle Mahara?" The crowd was silent for a while, and Dharmendra lowered his head. Ron took the opportunity to walk up and snatched the match from his hand. "Go home now, Teji is waiting for you. You must have sneaked out, right?" Ron slapped him on the neck. Dharmendra's momentum weakened even more. "And you?" Ron glared at the others. "My foreign guests are worried and scared, but you are helping the evil. Do you think you earn too much rupees?" Dharmendra is a resident of the Tejali slum. He usually helps Ron run errands, book taxis or buy tickets. In short, he lives on Ron. He was a laid-off worker before, and only after getting this job did he have money to support his family of 8. The other young people are similar. Although they are not employees of Ron's company, they usually receive his favors more or less. Ron is already very famous in this area. Everyone knows that he is capable, knows big shots, and is very generous to his subordinates. Now that he has been beaten and scolded by him, everyone unconsciously sobers up a little, and no longer has violence in their minds. "Hurry up. The patrol police are arresting people all over the street." After Ron threatened a few words, the group of young people ran away in shame. The sect is really poisonous. The young man who used to be so obedient has easily lost his mind. Uncle Mahara. Ron looked at the middle-aged man who was still shaking and crying. He was also an acquaintance, and usually sold bread in the area around Victoria Railway Station. Whether it was Ron or Dharmendra just now, they often bought bread from him to make do. They had a friendly relationship with each other, more than ordinary friends. But the sectarian conflict broke everything. "I still have children, I still have children," Mahara cried bitterly, and the gasoline on his body flowed along the road and into the grass. "No one will hurt your children. Go home and hide now, and don't open the door to anyone." Mahara looked up at him, and nodded silently after a long while. "Let's go quickly, it's getting dark." Ron took out 200 rupees from his wallet and handed it to him, then picked up the bicycle and packed the bread scattered on the ground. "Ron, you are a good person." Mahara started crying again, even more sad than before. "I bought a bread." Ron waved goodbye to him. Mahara rode away on his bicycle. He didn't dare to take the main road, so he could only take a detour through the wild to go home. Ron looked at his back with a complicated look. He actually hated the sects. He even hated the Moomin in his heart more because he had seen a lot of news in his previous life. But most ordinary people were innocent and didn't see it. Seeing it in person, he really couldn't remain indifferent. Just half an hour ago, he saw what happened to a man on fire. What's more, he knew both parties in the conflict. Kavaya didn't leave, she was waiting not far behind him. "Ron," she said with admiration. "Fortunately, my identity as a boss is still useful." Ron also breathed a sigh of relief. God knows if people who are blinded by religious hatred still have reason. His behavior just now is not without risk. If it was an unrelated passerby, Ron would never stop. The motorcycle started again, and before it was completely dark, the two finally entered Kavaya's apartment. The first thing Ron did when he got there was to pick up the phone and call Nia, telling her not to open the door until he returned. The city has lost order, and the police are useless. No, to be precise, they were even condoning it. As far as he knew, There were many Hindus among the Indian police. Every time there was a conflict between the two sides, they would take sides. Despite this, Ron still called the police he was familiar with and asked them to take care of their territory. It was fine if the two sides fought, but they should not smash their own stores. There was noise and fire coming from downstairs. The two people leaned over to the window. A small shop run by the Moomin had been looted. They did not stop there, but set the shop on fire before leaving. Then the crazy crowd continued to move to the next place they marked. Long before the action, they had checked which store was run by the Moomin and which house was inhabited by the Moomin. It was obvious that this was a premeditated action and the riots were far from over. "It's too dangerous outside, you can't leave," Kavaya said seriously. Ron didn't actually want to leave. He was also afraid. What if someone mistook him for a Moomin and set him on fire? Although his house was less than 3 kilometers away, Ron was not ready to take the risk. He turned around and looked at Kavia's apartment. There was only one bed, and the desk that took up the rest of the room had automatically ruled out the option of sleeping on the floor. What to do? At this moment, Ron actually thought that the broken disc was so beautiful and placed just right. P.S. That's it for today. I'll update it every day until the end of the month. Chapter 98 Medical Miracle. Kawaya's skin was a light tan, healthy and firm. But only when he touched it did Ron realize he was wrong. It was an indescribable softness. Outside, the fire was blazing, and screams were echoing in the streets. They couldn't go out, so they could only stay in this small room. Their eyes met, and they froze. A strange impulse rose in their hearts. Kavaya approached him, and the fire outside the window illuminated her eyes. She lowered her head and threw herself into his arms. The two embraced each other and fell down. The room was filled with her fragrance, just like what Ron smelled every day. They comforted each other in this turbulent night. They needed to put their chests close together, so close that they could feel each other's heartbeat. The fire in the King's Hang temple, the gasoline on the Mahara, and the screams outside all stimulated and suppressed them. Ron lingered in the hole of pleasure all night, and he threw all his anger, fear, and desire into it. When the street returned to peace, he buried his head in the softness and fell asleep. When he woke up again, Kavaya was no longer around. She was standing at the window and making a phone call. Ron yawned and got up. He had indulged himself too much last night. But this was not a bad thing. At least the gloom in his heart was swept away. Kavaya was only wearing a thin layer of pajamas. Facing the light outside the window, the charming scenery was unobstructed. Well, Ron's bro had already stood up to salute. It was erect. "It seems that last night was not your limit." Kavaya came over and boldly used one finger zen. "You'd better not provoke it. I'm afraid I can't control my erection. No wonder so many girls like you. It turns out you have so much capital. This is just a tiny bit of my strong strength. Tell me, what news did you get?" The fuse of the riot was a tragedy in Jageshwari district. Tragedy, Ron frowned. He hated this word now. It happened on the night of January 8th. There were Hindus and Mughals in the slum, and they were governed separately. There was a Hindu family living in a tube-shaped building, which happened to be located in the Mughal area. Then when the family was sleeping soundly, someone sealed their door from the outside and threw a gasoline bomb into the window. The 6 people were awakened by the explosion and tried to escape screaming. They failed and were eventually burned to death in the house. Among them was the family's daughter, a disabled Indian girl. Oh my God, Ron rubbed his head. He didn't see it with his own eyes, but thinking about this picture was shocking enough. Not to mention the Hindus who were brainwashed by the sect, they would never tolerate this. There is another saying that the disabled Indian girl was pinned to the ground before she died, and more than 20 pagans, that is, the Mukden, raped her. The neighbors said that her screams and the cries of her relatives who were locked in the house and licked by the flames resounded through the sky. In the end, they did not spare her. She was thrown into the fire, where her family lay. Ron was silenced by it. This was not something a human would do. Of course, Hindus were not good birds. Some people say that this was deliberately exaggerated by the Shiv army. They tried their best to incite Hindus to take revenge on the Mukden. But no matter what, this city is finished, at least for now. Kavaya's tone was very angry, but her eyes were full of sadness. She went to school in the United States since junior high school, but she still loved this country. Mumbai will not be so chaotic. Someone will always come to clean it up. Ron sighed, and his business was over. I have to go to the newspaper office. There is the latest news there. I want to write a special report. She started to dress and organize her office things. Let me take you there. It's too chaotic outside. Ron was worried about her being alone, and Viraj also needed to return his motorcycle. Kavi was interning at the Times of India, a famous newspaper in India. Her family had used a lot of connections to get into the newspaper. The streets outside were chaotic, but not completely out of order. The police, who came late, finally began to strictly maintain public order today. However, the residential areas of the Moomin people and the shops run by the Moomin people are still the focus of people's attention. It would be unreasonable not to come for a wave of $0 shopping on such a great opportunity. Ron took Kavi to the newspaper office smoothly, and then he drove the motorcycle to the Leopold bar. It was a mess here, and there were no customers at all. Fortunately, Viraj was already waiting at the intersection, and he seemed to know that Ron was coming. You have to go to the hospital with me. He couldn't wait to speak as soon as they met. What happened, Luca? That unlucky guy came at a really bad time. Ron learned from Viraj that Luca had arrived in Mumbai yesterday. Unfortunately, he encountered a riot just after leaving the airport. When the Hindus and the Muslims were fighting, an iron rod flew from nowhere. He was hit on the forehead and fell straight down. In the end, the police sent him to the hospital, otherwise this guy would have been lying on the ground all night and would have been stripped naked the next day. His clothes, shoes, and watches. These are good things that can be sold at a high price in the eyes of the slum people. He called you from the hospital, but you were not at home or at the company. At this point, Viraj looked at him teasingly. Did you succeed? I sent her to the newspaper office this morning. Ron shook his neck in an Indian way. I knew it would be easy for you to climb into a woman's bed. Viraj's face looked like he had swallowed a lemon. What about you? Ron suddenly started to gossip. Heelar was very proud. She scolded me and said that all Indians were perverts. I know she didn't mean me. She was just stimulated by what happened yesterday. It makes sense. Ron silently gave a thumbs up to this little imagination expert. Okay, stop talking nonsense. Let's go see Luca first. You disappeared for a whole night. Poor Luca didn't know how many times he stupidly dialed the phone until he remembered me in the morning. After learning that Ron succeeded, Viraj suddenly lost interest in the discussion. He began to blame Ron for not caring about his friend's life and death. His words were almost like valuing women over friends sticking on his forehead. When they arrived at Grant Hospital, they were shocked by the scene there. There were dead bodies everywhere, regardless of men and women, without names, only numbers. This turmoil was obviously not as simple as burning 1 or 2 pagans to death. This was a scene that could only be seen in wartime. A quick glance showed that there were at least more than 50 bodies lying in the hospital. Ron couldn't bear to look at their miserable condition. The two hurried into the ward, and the scene outside completely washed away their previous ease. The ward was even more chaotic, with wailing everywhere. There were men and women, old and young, Hindus, and Mughals. The abuser and the abused lay side by side, staring at each other with hatred. Although the atmosphere here was still tense, Ron and Viraj breathed a sigh of relief at the same time. No matter what, it was better than the dead silence outside. They found Luca in a separate corner, where 2 policemen were guarding. Ron went up and talked for a few words before he learned that it was the Exit and Entry Administration who was guarding. During this sensitive period, foreigners who had just arrived in Mumbai would always make the Indian authorities suspicious. They had heard rumors that the Mughals in the Persian Gulf were preparing to carry out bloody revenge. Fortunately, Luca didn't look like a Persian bearded man. With Ron as a guarantor and his complete passport, the police took a bribe of 200 rupees and left quietly. God, is India going to have a civil war? Luca, with gauze wrapped around his head, looked miserable. Those policemen are eager to collect money, but they won't let Mumbai really get into chaos. But you look fine miraculously. Ron looked at him in surprise. Dude, this is a concussion. The doctor said I have to stay in bed for at least a week. Shit, I kind of missed the girls in Leopold's bar. Why did you come to Mumbai at this time? Don't you watch the news? Viraj asked. Who would watch the news? Brazilians never watch the news. Brazilians just wait for the street boss to speak, then your luck is not very good. By the way, are all the goods sold out? Ron was more concerned about the purpose of his visit. The tourism business will definitely be ruined for the time being, and the pharmaceutical business has become the key. Speaking of this topic, Luca also became excited. I'm considered a big shot in Rio de Janeiro now, Luca said proudly. But he soon became sad again. But just after returning to this city that brought me wealth, I was robbed again. Ron and Viraj looked at each other. You were robbed? Yes, I was lying on the ground. When I woke up, the $3,000 in my bag was gone. I suspect it was done by the two policemen just now. When gangs fight, no one will rob the sick lying on the ground. I have experience in this. But no one told me where the money went, and no one said they would investigate the matter. At least they saved you, Ron comforted him. This is a fact. Although the police are greedy, they still have some integrity and did not throw Luca on the street. Fortunately, I'm smart. Luca scratched his crotch proudly, where there was a hidden layer sewn secretly. You are really a talent, Ron laughed and cursed. It seems that this trick is applicable all over the world. You're right, I brought another big business this time. Luca sat up from the bed excitedly. What big? Ron didn't finish his sentence, and suddenly there was a commotion in the hall. They turned around and saw that the Hindus and the movement were fighting again. One side pulled out the infusion needle and smashed the saline bottle at the enemy. The other side waved a bamboo pole for infusion and hit the opponent's head fiercely. A new round of war broke out, and the whole hall was in chaos. Quick! Run! Luca jumped up from the bed, took off the gauze on his head, and then ran away. What kind of medical miracle is this? Ron and Viraj also ran away. Never mind what big business it is, just run for your life first. Chapter 99 Asan's life is also a life. Mumbai is now a complete powder keg. Wherever there are Hindus and Mughals, there will be fighting. Of course, because of the advantage in numbers, Hindus often beat Mughals. They went in groups, sweeping door to door along the streets. The shops opened by Mughals have always been the focus of the rioting crowd. Under the leadership of the Shiv Sena, orange-yellow battle flags were flying everywhere in the city. Ron and his friends took shelter in a private club with police defense to relax. He often brought those officials and directors here for entertainment. Many people in this club knew him. Ron, I'll help you watch your territory. There won't be Mughals causing damage there. Samant, the director of the Kalaba police station, came over to shake hands immediately after seeing him. My business is all ruined, Ron complained. When will it end? When we drive those damned Mukden out of Mumbai. They are all vicious criminals. Extortion, rape, murder, gang fights, there is nothing they can't do. Samant has a deep prejudice against Mukden. He believes that 1/3 of the serious crimes in Mumbai are committed by Mukden, who are more violent and more likely to commit crimes than Hindus. Ron doesn't know if this is sectarian discrimination, but most people here agree with what Samant said. Looking around, the people hiding in the club are either officials or businessmen like Ron. Perhaps their identity can be viewed from another perspective, that is, the privileged class in Mumbai. The streets outside are in chaos, but the people in the club have the leisure to taste red wine and talk about business. The walkie-talkie in the hands of the police at the door will be roared almost every few seconds, which is the live battle report from the front line. There are military trucks approaching, loaded with milk and other rations. Major Said Ramachella is leading the team. A crowd is gathering, requesting reinforcements. Why the hell are you distributing milk to the Mughals? Are you looking for death? Don't you know whose gathering place is there? Samant cursed. The people who receive milk and supplies have dispersed. After a while, the person on the intercom answered. Who allowed the milk to be distributed? Don't you fucking understand? Don't give milk to those dogs. Samant was furious. It's two military trucks, led by Major Said Ramachella. Stop the car. Search him. Fuck the major, he's a Mughal. Samant gave orders angrily. There's a mob gathering outside the Marathi garage. Location, Gasgari district, Lamington Road. They may set fire to the garage. Requesting reinforcements, another intercom sounded. Burn down the garage of the Mukden. Damn it, watch out, don't touch the garage of the Marathi people, just burn down the garage of the Mukden. Samant waved his arms. The police here did not avoid anyone, they issued such instructions in full view of the public. Ron shrugged at the stunned Luca. There was nothing he could do. Everyone here was Hindu, and most of them were high castes. After the storm outside passed, Ron was ready to leave. He had to discuss some things with Luca, and also to see how much his business had lost. I'll ask 2 people to escort you. Samant gently pulled his arm. Ron, my son is learning English recently. He needs a complete set of imported tutoring materials. So, okay, how much in US dollars do you need? Ron asked skillfully. $20,000. He quietly made a gesture. with a flattering smile on his face. Because of the riots, the exchange rate of the rupee has been falling these 2 days. About 1 or 2 points. Is that okay? It's all the fault of the damned women, Samant cursed, but finally agreed to the price. Send someone to my company to pick it up in 2 days, no problem. Samant has always been very efficient in handling such matters. Before leaving, he waved his hand and arranged 2 extra police officers to escort Ron. A full 4 policemen guarded them in front and behind, as if Ron was their immediate superior. With such a lineup, no petty thief would come to cause trouble. The group soon arrived at the Indian hotel in Xiangtu, where Luca would stay for the time being. After giving each policeman a tip of 200 rupees, the few people said goodbye politely. A big police officer even hinted that as long as he paid, Ron could directly hire a policeman as a bodyguard. This is Mumbai, a hell for the poor and a paradise for the rich. Let me make a few calls first. Lying on the bar counter of the hotel, Ron picked up the landline and started dialing. The first people he looked for were Mary and Lena. Since last night, he had been busy with many things and had not had time to contact many people. Fortunately, Mary and her friends were in Bollywood, where there was no riot. The two had returned to the apartment smoothly, and even called him several times during the period. Ron felt a little guilty, so he could only make excuses by saying that he was stuck in a hotel. Then he began to ask about their well-being, which touched Mary and Lena. Alice, being a sea king is actually very tiring, and you have to provide emotional value to the girls all the time. Ron learned from the phone that Bollywood could not start work for the time being. Several ethnic minority stars were threatened by Hindus in the crew, and the director and producer had to interrupt the filming. Well, there is no need to count on the income from the extras for the time being. Ron called the train station and the airline, and the situation there was equally bad. Although it was not to the point of stopping operations, the number of tourists decreased greatly, and foreigners were almost extinct. Western media have begun to report on the riots in Mumbai on a large scale, and no one wants to joke with their own lives. Ron looked up at the TV in the hall, and sure enough, the screen was showing the Mumbai riots. My guests hid in their rooms and dared not go out. Even the food was delivered to the door by the waiter. Xiangtu shook his head helplessly. When will the Shiv army stop? Ron asked. Who knows? Bal Thackeray went to the Tube building in person today. He's going to hold a mobilization meeting. Bal Thackeray is the leader of the Shiv army, and Rafiq is his right-hand man. They went to the Tube building where 6 people were killed to mobilize, which was tantamount to advocating profiteering and rubbing salt into the wounds of the Mumbai people. Because the latter had died hundreds of people in just 2 or 3 days. It was obvious that this conflict would not end so easily, and the Shiv army seized the opportunity. They stepped onto the stage of Mumbai, and the United Indian Party now showed its presence everywhere, and they were determined to win this city. Ron, Persia is coming, Anand ran in from outside. What? Everyone was surprised. It's said that the destruction of the Babri Masjid has completely angered the people of the Muktini community. They are recruiting soldiers and a bloody battle is inevitable. Everyone is saying so. People in small shops, train stations, and office tea rooms are organizing convoys to go to the beach. It's close to the Arabian Sea. They turned on their high beams to be on guard there all night yesterday. There are also people in the lighthouse to keep watch, guarding against a Persian fleet that is said to be loaded with various missiles and guns and is only 1 port away. I saw a lot of people at the dock with my own eyes, and Anand looked panicked. Their slums were not far from the beach. The sound of car engines and lights all night made everyone panic. If a war really broke out, their slums would be the first to suffer. Don't worry, Persia won't declare war, Ram comforted him. How do you know? Those people are crazy. They like war, Anand was still worried. This is about the lives of billions of people in the 2 countries. The war will not break out. Ram couldn't tell him that the 2 countries never fought in the future. Do you have any inside information? Anand came over stealthily. I just met Director Samant, and he said so. Ron lied without hesitation. That's good, don't fight, Baba, Anand laughed happily. This guy is too easy to fool, Ron secretly complained. Of course, this is also out of trust in him. After chatting with Xiangtu and the others for a few words, Ron took Luca and Anand upstairs, and Viraj ran back to Koxhila. Ron never licked a dog, and every time others took the initiative to lick him. Look at Mary, Lena, and Kavya, which one of them didn't take the initiative to push him down on the bed? Even little Nia was eager to make a move. wondering whether to take off her clothes and get into his bed. Ahem, she was too young, and Ron couldn't do it. Anand, there is no hope for our business for the time being. After sitting down, Ron sighed a little melancholy. He bought a piece of land and was preparing to start a travel agency. But just when he was about to make a grand plan, everything was abruptly paused. As long as there is no war, Mumbai will soon be as lively as before, Anand was optimistic. Let's hope so. Hard Khan hadn't contacted him recently, and the meeting with an official that he had agreed to last time was probably going to be shelved now. We can start other businesses first, Luca interrupted when he found an opportunity. What business? Medicine. Ron was not interested. Didn't you hear Anand say that there are people guarding the dock now, and we can't find a ship to go out to sea? We won't go out to sea first, the medicine can wait. Have you heard of Merck, that American pharmaceutical company? Oh, you know. This is just right, they are going to come to India, open up the Indian market? I don't think it's a good idea. Since ancient times, most authentic ones have been unable to beat the counterfeit ones. Ron has seen a lot of them in China, and those foreign brands often fail to adapt to the local environment. No, they don't sell medicine, they want to build a laboratory. You know, developing new drugs requires clinical trials. You mean the pharmacist? Ron thought of this word almost instantly. Drug man. Look, what a great word. Luca was very excited. I have a relationship with Merck. They are willing to pay us a lot of money as long as we find a drug man. Ron was silent. Of course, he knew what a drug man did, but this touched his bottom line. Admittedly, he was not a good person. It was just that he couldn't get over the hurdle of letting a living person test the drug. Asan's life was also a life. Ron, in fact, many people are willing to do this job as long as they are paid. Anand next to him suddenly interrupted. Chapter 100, Respect like a God. Is there anyone willing to do this job? Ron asked in surprise. Of course. Do they know what risks the drug man has to take? They don't care, Anand answered easily. Ron was silent for a while, wondering if he hadn't made himself clear. Testing drugs is not just a matter of taking an injection, and it might leave sequelae for the rest of your life. Maybe I should take you to see it, Anand suddenly suggested. Where to go? The real Mumbai? Don't come on, I've been to all the places that should be visited in Mumbai. Ron waved his hand indifferently. He had not been walking in the sun all the time in the past year. No, you have definitely not been there, I promise. Anand was anxious. In that case, let's go now. Luca rubbed his hands on the side. To be honest, he was very interested in this kind of place, and the adventurous factor in his body was stirring again. Ron can go, but you can't. Why? This time it was Luca who was anxious. Because they don't accept foreigners, brother, I know the rules. Do you want money? I have a little hidden, so it's absolutely fine. No, foreigners are not allowed, even if you pay. Anand started shaking his head again. Okay, you stay in the hotel, Anand and I will go and take a look before making a decision. Ron interrupted their argument. Most of his business has been paralyzed, and there is nothing to do, so it doesn't hurt to take a look. Leaving Luca behind, Anand took Ron to the slum area. They only took the small roads, not the main roads. Originally Ron was worried about the riots outside, but after walking around the maze-like alleys for a few times, even the sound of car horns disappeared in his ears. It was too quiet here, as if it didn't belong to Mumbai. The buildings on both sides were old and dilapidated. The stone facades that were originally magnificent and imposing were now peeling and dirty everywhere, and there were traces of random repairs. The small balconies that can be seen everywhere above the head blocked most of the sunlight in the alley. After turning a few corners, the alley became darker and the buildings became older. The next section of the road is not easy to walk. We have to walk along the outside and stick to the wall. After saying that, Anand turned and entered an even narrower alley. He spread his legs until each foot touched the wall, then put his hands against the wall and walked along the wall. Ron followed suit and entered the alley. The light here was even darker, almost pitch black. There seemed to be a puddle in the middle of the alley, and a pile of sticky things was piled there. Ron carefully avoided it, but a furry thing bumped into it recklessly. A foul smell came out of the soft and sticky thing, and Ron almost vomited. Anand, there's something under our feet. It's huge. There's only rats crawling around here. Ron, nothing else. Damn it. You said that thing was a rat? I thought it was a cow. Big rats are okay, Ron, he replied softly, Big rats are friendly and won't hurt people, except for one thing. What is it? Tell me now, screaming, Baba. They don't like loud noises, otherwise they'll bite people. Why didn't you tell me earlier? How far away is it? I can't even see your back. As he was speaking, Ron bumped into his back. It turned out that Anand had stopped, and there was a piled wooden door in front of him. Here we are, Anand whispered, and then reached out and knocked on the door. He knocked in a very regular pattern, knocking once and stopping, knocking again and stopping again. Ron held his breath, and there was a scraping and clanging sound of heavy bolts sliding from the door. The door opened, and the light suddenly appeared, blinding them. Anand grabbed Ron's sleeve and let him in. Hurry, don't let the rat get in. They walked into a small room with no windows around. The sunlight could only come in from the rectangular sky covered with silk on the top. A tall man slammed the door, then turned to face them, with a sullen face and bare teeth. Anand immediately began to comfort him, speaking softly and flatteringly. It was obvious that Ron's unfamiliar face made the man in front of him very unhappy. The man was very strong, with big nostrils, and his breathing was like the sound of the sea breeze pouring into the cave, clearly audible. He had short hair, and the muscles on his face were stronger than the back muscles of ordinary people. The beard on his lips was like a dagger, making him look even more angry. Anand negotiated with him for a while, turned his head. He said tourists are not allowed to come here. I understand Marathi, Anand. Ron looked at him helplessly. The tall man was a little surprised. He thought Ron was a foreigner. Are you from Mumbai? He asked. No, I'm from the north, but I like Marathi. My God, you're the first northerner I've met who speaks Marathi better than Hindi. Thank you, Ron pouted secretly. He had never spoken Hindi from the beginning to now, and didn't know where the other party's judgment came from. Since we are all family, just follow the rules. The tall man smiled at them. 100 rupees per person, Ron, Anand explained in a low voice. This is a tip. After giving the money, the tall man told Ron that his name was Novi, and then pointed to the narrow corridor behind him to indicate that they could go in. Novi is a policeman, and his jurisdiction is in northern Mumbai, Anand said quietly after turning around. Policeman, Ron was surprised. Why is he here? This is a side job. Every policeman has ways to make money besides salary. In Mumbai, you are not happy without money. Ron didn't say anything. He shouldn't be surprised. He himself has stuffed money into the police more than once, which is enough to explain the problem. The corridor behind Novi is very long, with several bends and a gate. Anand first took him to a place similar to a courtyard, which was more appropriate to call a patio. There were several men sitting on rough wooden benches, chatting in groups of 2 or 3. Some of them were Arabs, wearing loose robes and had scarves. Some looked at Ron curiously, with scrutiny in their eyes. Anand grinned and greeted them. They turned around and continued their conversation. Someone in the middle looked up to see a group of children sitting on long chairs under the shabby canvas shed. Those children were thin and petite, some sitting, some cuddling together. Others were working, rubbing cold rackets with their slender arms. Ron looked up at the yard. There were no windows around, and the gaps were sealed tightly. He suddenly realized what this place was. Those children were actually commodities. They come from the tornado-stricken areas in West Bengal, the drought-stricken areas in Orissa, the cholera-stricken areas in Haryana, and the war-torn areas in Punjab. Only the luckiest children can come here. The luckiest? What about the unfortunate ones? Ron couldn't bear to think about it. Suddenly, a little girl stood up from the bench, dancing and singing. She sang a love song from a Bollywood hit movie. She was only 10 years old, and her voice was surprisingly loud and high-pitched. She twisted her waist and hips, trying to imitate the movements of a seductive dancer to push up her undeveloped breasts. She was selling herself. Only by selling herself could she have a chance to survive. Several buyers and agents' eyes lit up, secretly thinking about how much money they could make. Anand introduced everything here to Ron like a tour guide. He told Ron that many children died before they could reach the human market. The spies who made a living by looking for children roamed around various disaster areas. Wherever there was drought, earthquake, or flood, they would be there. Parents on the verge of starvation watched their children get sick and die one after another, so seeing these spies was like seeing a savior. They immediately knelt down to kiss the spies' feet and begged them to buy a son or daughter, or at least keep a child. The boys who were bought would eventually serve as camel jockeys in the Persian Gulf countries, providing afternoon entertainment for wealthy dignitaries in camel races. Some of them would be seriously injured and disabled in the race, and some would die directly. Those who were lucky enough to save their lives would often be abandoned and have to fend for themselves because they were no longer suitable for the race. As for the girls, the darkest thing in the world would probably happen to them, and working as maids in the Persian Gulf families would be the best ending. But they are alive, Anand said. Those boys and girls, they are lucky. Every time a child comes to the human market here, it means that at least 100 children die of unspeakable hunger and illness. His tone was always relaxed. This was not because he was cold-blooded, but because this country had been like this for thousands of years. Come, let's go and see the shelter again. That's where we are going today. Coming out of another door of the human market, Anand took Ron and continued to walk through the long and narrow corridor. After a while, they came to an old apartment building. Ron vaguely regained a sense of direction. It seemed to be near St. George's Hospital. The people here definitely don't mind being medicine men. They don't have much time left. Anand said this is a shelter for terminally ill patients, full of patients and dying people. They walked in and saw people everywhere on the floor. This shelter is known as a holy place among the poor. It can provide you with a small piece of floor that is sheltered from the wind and rain. Lie on it, and wait to die. Ron saw people walking around. He put labels on the patients. The symbols on the labels indicated how many organs the person had available. It is called a shelter, but it is more like a huge organ bank. The patients here are willing to provide their organs to the operators, so as to earn a quiet and clean place to die, so as not to die on the streets. The patients here are grateful to this shelter and respect it very much. The eyes of the staff passing by are affectionate as if they love him. Ron, can the laboratory you mentioned provide a clean place? I think so. Can you give them a meal? It should be no problem. Will they be beaten? Of course not. Will their bodies be thrown on the street? No, they will worship you like a god, Anand said, pointing at the patient on the floor. Ron was speechless. P.S. I was in a trance the whole day yesterday. But there will be 10,000 posts every day. Until the end of the month, there will be continuous updates. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.